Hey guys, imagine this. In the glittering ballrooms of St. Petersburg, where czars waltzed with destiny and peasants froze in the snow, there lurked a shadow empire of silk stockings and shattered dreams. Picture a young woman fresh from the countryside, clutching a yellow ticket that's not a golden pass to freedom, but a branded badge of eternal shame. Welcome to the absurd, heartbreaking world of prostitutes in Tsarist Russia, where survival meant selling your soul 1 ruble at a time. Before you get comfortable, please hit like and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do. Drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's dive together into today's journey. Tsarist Russia, the land of endless winters, vodka-fueled revolutions, and a social order so rigid it could snap like a frozen twig. But beneath the pomp of the Romanovs, there was a gritty underbelly where women navigated a minefield of poverty, patriarchy, and plain old absurdity. We're talking about prostitution, that oldest profession turned into a state-sanctioned circus of exploitation. From the 1840s right up to the Bolshevik fireworks of 1917, the empire tolerated, nay, regulated, this trade with all the finesse of a bear juggling teacups. And oh, the irony. In a society obsessed with moral purity and orthodox piety, they handed out yellow tickets like party favors, marking women as public property while pretending it was all for the greater good. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? Picture Nicholas I, that stern military man with a mustache that could command armies, sitting on his throne in 1843. Russia's booming with reforms. Serfs are still chained, but hey, let's legalize brothels. Why? Because soldiers, those unmarried lads drafted for 25 years of soul-crushing service, needed an outlet for their passions. Can you imagine? The Tsar, probably sipping tea with his favorites, decides prostitution is a safety valve for society's steaming kettle of male urges. Absurd, right? As if women were just pressure-release gadgets in the grand machine of empire. But survival? That's the real pain here. Women didn't wake up one day thinking, gosh, I'd love to trade dignity for disease. No, they were pushed by famine, by dead husbands, by the relentless grind of serfdom's aftermath. Take our imaginary heroine. Let's call her Katya. Katya is a peasant girl from some forgotten village in the Volga region, where the soil's as barren as hope. She's 18, wide-eyed, fleeing redemption payments that suck the life out of her family farm. Urban migration's the rage. Cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg, swelling with young, unattached women seeking factory jobs. But factories? Ha! Low pay, brutal hours, and bosses with wandering hands. Katya arrives in the big city, dazzled by the gas lamps and cobblestone streets, only to find doors slamming shut. Seamstress? Pays pennies. Domestic servant? Risk of rape by the master. So, whispers in the shadows lead her to the secret trade, the unregulated underground prostitution that thrived before the yellow ticket era. It's the mid-1800s and secret prostitution is booming because, irony alert, official brothels are still a novelty. Women like Katya operate in bathhouses, taverns, or even their cramped apartments, dodging the police who pretend to enforce bans but pocket bribes faster than you can say vodka. The absurdity peaks when Nicholas I, in his infinite wisdom, creates the Medical Police Committee. Boom, prostitution's legal, but only if you're registered. Enter the yellow ticket, a substitute for your passport, bright as a warning sign, screaming, "I'm a public woman," to every nosy official. It requires bi-weekly medical checks, probe here, poke there, to curb venereal diseases, which are rampaging like Cossacks through the ranks. Syphilis, gonorrhea. They're the uninvited guests at this tragic party, infecting up to 70% of registered prostitutes by some estimates. Painful, isn't it? These women endure invasive exams in cold clinics, treated like cattle, all while society clucks its tongue and calls them dangerous elements. But let's not sugarcoat the survival horror. Katya gets her yellow ticket after a raid. Maybe she's caught soliciting near the Neva River, where aristocrats cruise for thrills. Now she's official. No more passport, no chance of a normal job. The ticket brands her forever. Try renting a room without judgmental stares or getting married. Ha! It's a one-way ticket to stigma. And the brothels? Only women over 30 could own them, per the 1844 rules for brothel keepers. Absurd rule: madams had to be trustworthy, meaning not too young to corrupt, but experienced enough to exploit. These houses range from luxurious dens for the nobility, silk sheets, champagne, and prices that could buy a horse, to squalid holes for workers, where a quick tumble costs a kopeck and leaves you with regrets and rashes. Katya ends up in a mid-tier brothel in St. Petersburg's seedy side, run by a bandersha, a female pimp with a heart of stone and a ledger of debts. The madam advances money for dresses, food, even makeup, but it's a trap. Interest piles up, and Katya is stuck servicing clients to pay off an endless loan. Clients? Oh, the variety's a sarcastic joke on social equality. Aristocrats in fur coats slumming it for forbidden fun. Merchants haggling like it's a bazaar. Soldiers fresh from drills demanding discounts. And the pain? Violence is routine. Drunken beatings, forced acts, and if you complain, the police, who get freebies, look the other way. Drop a comment below. Have you ever wondered how these women coped? What survival tricks do you think they'd share? The historical absurdity thickens in the Far East. Vladivostok, that foggy outpost, becomes a hub for Japanese prostitutes, Karayuki-san, outnumbering men 3-2 by the 1890s. They're not just there for business. Japanese nationalist groups like the Black Ocean Society glorify them as an Amazon army, even using them for spying on Russians. Imagine espionage via pillow talk. While back in Moscow, estimates hit 30,000 prostitutes by 1917, a city teeming with yellow ticket holders navigating regulations that negate their humanity. But survival's the raw nerve. Many women are migrants, unheaded as officials called them. Without male guardians, they're prey. Poverty drives them. Post-1861 emancipation floods cities with desperate souls. Factories exploit, families abandon, and boom, into the trade. The irony? Society views them as vectors of decay, spreading VD to innocent wives and children, yet relies on them as that safety valve. Mikhailovsky in 1869 called it a benefit for social passions. Sarcasm intended, folks. It's like saying sewers are great because they hide the filth. Katya's days blur. Mornings nursing hangovers and sores. Afternoons in line at the clinic where doctors prod with cold instruments. Evenings performing for leering eyes. The yellow ticket means freedom to work but chains you to the system. Can't travel without permission. Can't quit without proving reform. And reform? Laughable. Some try handicrafts or marriage, but the stigma sticks like tar. Pain echoes in stories of trafficking. Early 1900s panic over white slavery, where girls are lured abroad or to cities with job promises only to wake in locked brothels. Procurers, often men posing as lovers, sell them for profit. The empire prosecutes some, but corruption reigns. Police take cuts. Officials turn blind eyes. Absurdly, the system claims to protect women by regulating them, yet exposes them to horrors. By the late 1800s, venereal diseases explode. Record levels, as one source quips, turning prostitutes into dangerous women. Public health crusaders rant, but solutions? More checks, more stigma. Writers like Dostoevsky immortalize them. Sonia in Crime and Punishment, a saintly sinner forced by poverty to save her family. Tolstoy's Maslova in Resurrection, branded and broken. Kuprin's The Pit exposes brothel life with raw empathy, prostitutes hating clients yet trapped in debt. These tales drip sarcasm, society's hypocrisy laid bare, where men sin freely, women pay eternally. Katya dreams of escape, maybe a kind client, a windfall, but reality bites. Age creeps, beauty fades, diseases ravage. Some end in hospitals, others in rivers. Suicide's a grim statistic. The pain of survival? It's enduring daily degradation for bread in a world that deems you disposable. Yet, irony, these women fuel the empire's undercurrents, from soldiers' morale to artists' muses. Comment time. What's the most shocking fact so far? Yellow tickets or spy prostitutes? Share below. I read everyone. As the 20th century dawns, regulation creaks under pressure. Feminists rail against it as state-sponsored vice. Socialists see it as capitalist rot. But for women like Katya, it's just another day in the nightmare. The absurdity? In a land of autocrats preaching piety, prostitution's a regulated industry, complete with ID cards and taxes. The dark truth? It's a survival gauntlet where pain's the currency, and hope's the rarest commodity. We're just scratching the surface. Brothels' inner workings, scandals that rocked the elite, and how it all crumbled with the czars. Stick around for part 2, but first, ponder. Could you survive Katya's world? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep this conversation alive. Until next time, stay curious about history's shadows. Alright, let's dive back into the grim carnival of Tsarist Russia's underbelly, where the yellow ticket isn't just a pass to work, it's a leash, a brand, and a one-way ticket to a life of irony-soaked misery. We left Katya, our peasant-turned-prostitute, trapped in a St. Petersburg brothel, dodging lecherous clients and dreaming of a way out that's about as likely as a sunny day in Siberia. This is part 2 of our sardonic plunge into the dark truth of prostitution in Tsarist Russia, where survival's a cruel game, and the house always wins. So, buckle up, keep those comments coming, tell me what shocked you most from part 1, and let's wade deeper into this historical swamp of absurdity and pain. Picture St. Petersburg in the 1880s, gaslights flickering like the last sparks of hope. The city's a paradox. Gilded palaces tower over slums and brothels. Oh, they're everywhere. From velvet-draped dens for the nobility to rat-infested shacks for the working stiffs. Katya's stuck in one of these mid-tier houses where the wallpaper's peeling, but the madam's smile is sharper than a Cossack's saber. The brothel's a microcosm of Tsarist society. Rigid hierarchy, exploitation dressed as order, and enough hypocrisy to choke a choir boy. The madam, let's call her Madame Vera, because every good villain needs a name, runs the show like a general. She's over 30 per those absurd 1844 regulations, and trustworthy, meaning she's got the police on speed dial, or whatever passed for it in the 19th century, and a knack for squeezing every kopeck out of her girls. Katya's not just working for her keep, she's drowning in debt for the lacy dress she's forced to wear, the stale bread she eats, and the cot she collapses on after a 12-hour shift of degradation. The daily grind? Brutal. Katya's up at noon, nursing bruises from last night's drunk merchant who thought no was just a suggestion. She's got to look presentable, powdered face, pinned hair, a smile that hides the scream inside, because Madame Vera's got a reputation to uphold. By afternoon, it's off to the medical police committee for those oh-so-charming bi-weekly checkups. Picture a drafty room, a chain-smoking doctor with hands colder than a Siberian winter, and a line of women staring at the floor, clutching their yellow tickets like scarlet letters. These exams are supposed to curb disease, but they're more like public shaming with a side of medical neglect. Syphilis rates are climbing. Some reports say 50 to 70% of prostitutes are infected by the 1890s. And the cure? Mercury treatments that burn your throat and rot your teeth. Survival's pain isn't just emotional, it's physical, etched into every aching bone. Clients come in waves as evening falls. The brothel's a revolving door of society's finest. Officers preening in their medals, students blowing their allowances, even the occasional priest sneaking in, muttering about saving souls while undoing his belt. The irony? These men are the pillars of Tsarist morality, yet here they are, fueling an industry the state both regulates and reviles. Katya's learned to read them, smile for the shy ones, flatter the egos of the rich, and dodge the fists of the drunks. But violence is the unspoken rule. A client can slap you, force you, even leave you bleeding, and the police? They're too busy collecting their cut from Madame Vera to care. One study from 1909 estimates 60% of prostitutes faced regular abuse, but numbers don't capture the dread of hearing boots on the stairs, wondering if this guy's the one who'll go too far. Comment time. What's the most absurd part of this setup to you? The state-sanctioned brothels or the police turning a blind eye? Drop it below. I'm dying to know what you think. Let's talk survival now, because that's the raw, throbbing heart of this story. Katya didn't choose this life, it chose her. Most prostitutes, 80% by some counts, were peasant women, driven by the post-1861 emancipation chaos. Serfdom's gone, but freedom's a lie when you're starving. Rural families, crushed by redemption payments, send daughters to cities hoping for factory jobs. But factories pay a pittance. 3 rubles a month maybe, when rent's twice that. Domestic service? A gamble with predatory masters. Prostitution's the last resort, and the yellow ticket system makes it a trap. Once registered, you're marked for life. Want to quit? Good luck. You need to prove moral reform, which means convincing a skeptical committee you found a husband or a respectable job, both near impossible with that yellow stain on your record. The absurdity peaks in the rules. Prostitutes can't live near churches or schools because, morality must be protected. They can't walk certain streets or wear provocative clothes, yet their job is to be provocative. They're banned from theaters, but aristocrats can parade them at private parties. It's a Kafkaesque maze of contradictions, designed to keep women like Katya in line while letting society pretend it's pure. And the pain? It's in the details. On paper, the palace claimed no girl under 16 could be admitted. In practice, the rule was meaningless. Money could smooth over any missing years. By 1900, white slavery scandals erupt, with newspapers screaming about girls shipped to Constantinople or Buenos Aires, locked in foreign brothels. The empire cracks down, but it's theater. Corruption's too deep, and officials profit too much. Let's zoom out to the cultural stage, where the irony's so thick you could cut it with a dull knife. Writers and artists can't stop romanticizing or demonizing these women. Dostoevsky's Sonia in Crime and Punishment is a saintly prostitute sacrificing for family, while Tolstoy's Maslova in Resurrection is a tragic victim of society's hypocrisy. Kuprin's The Pit, published in 1915, rips the veil off, showing brothels as soul-crushing machines. These stories grip readers, but here's the sarcasm-laced truth. While intellectuals wax poetic, real women like Katya are trapped in a system that chews them up. Society calls them fallen, yet depends on them to keep men's urges in check. It's a twisted moral algebra where women are the variables subtracted from dignity. Now, let's travel to the edges of the empire, because the absurdity doesn't stop at city limits. In Siberia and the Far East, prostitution's a frontier frenzy. Vladivostok's a hotspot, with Japanese Karayuki-san dominating the trade. By 1900, they're a third of the city's population, serving sailors and soldiers in a port buzzing with imperial ambition. Some Japanese nationalists even call them patriots, gathering intel on Russian defenses, because nothing says espionage like a candlelit rendezvous. Back in European Russia, Moscow's got 30,000 prostitutes by 1910, many unregistered, dodging the yellow ticket stigma but risking arrest. The pain of survival is universal. Whether in a fancy brothel or a back alley tavern, these women face disease, violence, and despair. Hospitals overflow with syphilitic patients. Suicide rates climb. One report notes prostitutes often choose the Neva over another day of torment. The system's cracks are showing, though. By the 1900s, feminists and reformers are shouting from the rooftops. The All-Russian Congress of 1910 demands abolition of regulation, calling it state-sponsored vice. Socialists blame capitalism, arguing it turns women into commodities. But for Katya, ideology's just noise. Her reality's a cycle of clients, debts, and dread. She might stash a few rubles dreaming of a shop or a husband, but the odds are grim. Aging out means destitution. Disease means a slow death. The irony? The empire needs her. Soldiers, workers, even poets need her, but scorns her existence. She's the oil in the machine, but also the rust. Comment challenge. If you were Katya, what's one trick you'd try to escape this life? Share your ideas below and let's see how creative you get. As we head toward part 3, the storm's brewing. The Romanovs are stumbling, revolution's whispering, and the yellow ticket system's about to face its reckoning. But before we get there, let's linger on the pain. Every day, women like Katya bet their lives on survival, knowing the house always wins. The absurdity? In a land obsessed with order, prostitution's chaos is the one thing the czars can't control. Stay tuned for part 3, where scandals rock the elite and the system starts to crack. Keep those comments coming. What's the wildest historical fact you've learned so far? Until next time, keep digging into history's shadows. Here we go, plunging back into the grim, sardonic circus of Tsarist Russia's prostitution racket, where the yellow ticket is less a permit and more a curse written in bureaucratic ink. Katya, our battle-scarred heroine, is still clawing through the muck of St. Petersburg's brothel life, where survival's a high-stakes gamble and the odds are stacked higher than a nobleman's ego. This is part 3 of our twisted tale, and the absurdity's about to hit fever pitch. Think scandals that make aristocrats blush, a system creaking under its own hypocrisy, and women like Katya caught in the crossfire of a society that needs them but despises them. Grab a seat, drop a comment with the most mind-blowing thing you've learned so far, and let's wade into the chaos of history's darkest corners. It's the early 1900s now, and Tsarist Russia is starting to wobble like a drunk on thin ice. The empire's still glittering with balls and balalaikas, but beneath the surface it's a pressure cooker of unrest. Strikes, revolutionary pamphlets, and a growing sense that the Romanovs might not be eternal. Prostitution, though? It's thriving, a grim constant in a world of change. Katya's still in her mid-tier brothel, under Madame Vera's iron grip, where the air smells of cheap perfume and cheaper dreams. The yellow ticket system, that absurd masterpiece of regulation, is in full swing, but it's fraying at the edges. By 1905, the first Russian Revolution shakes things up. Workers riot, intellectuals rant, and prostitutes, they're still dodging fists and disease, but now with a backdrop of political chaos. The irony's delicious. While men debate freedom in smoky cafes, Katya's freedom is a yellow scrap of paper that chains her to a life of servitude. Let's talk scandals, because Tsarist Russia's elite loved a good one. Picture a high society ball in St. Petersburg, 1907. Nobles in furs, chandeliers sparkling, and whispers about a certain prince caught in a raid at a luxurious brothel on Nevsky Prospect. The papers, those brave enough to print it, hint at orgies involving generals, diplomats, and enough champagne to drown a regiment. The kicker? These brothels are legal, state-sanctioned, yet the elite clutch their pearls when caught indulging. The hypocrisy's so thick you could spread it on bread. One notorious case involves a governor's son, let's say Ivan Petrovich, who's found passed out in a brothel with a prostitute barely 16. The police hush it up. Yellow tickets mean nothing when rubles talk. But the gossip spreads like wildfire. Society's outraged, not at the exploitation, but at the embarrassment. Poor Ivan's shipped to a country estate. The girl? Back to the grind. Another faceless cog in the machine. Survival's the real story, though, and it's painted in shades of pain. Katya is in her mid-20s now, and the years are carving lines into her face faster than a sculptor. The brothel's a revolving door of misery. New girls arrive, fresh from villages or trafficked from abroad, wide-eyed until the first client breaks them. The yellow ticket system's a trap. Once you're in, escape's a fantasy. Want to leave? You need a clean bill of moral health, which means a job or a husband. But who hires a registered prostitute? And marriage? The stigma's a life sentence. Katya's tried saving rubles, maybe bribing a clerk to lose her paperwork, but Madame Vera's ledger keeps her in debt. The madam's no fool, she charges for everything. Rent, food, even the vodka Katya drinks to numb the nights. By 1910, studies estimate 70% of prostitutes are in perpetual debt to their madams, a system so predatory it makes loan sharks look charitable. The absurdity ramps up with the state's obsession with control. Regulations pile on. Prostitutes can't ride in fancy carriages, because heaven forbid they mingle with respectable women. They're banned from certain streets at certain hours, yet expected to be available 24/7 for clients. The medical police committee's still poking and prodding, but venereal diseases are a runaway train. Syphilis is ravaging cities. Some reports claim 80% of urban prostitutes are infected by 1910. Treatments? Arsenic-based drugs now, slightly less toxic than mercury, but still a gamble that leaves you shaking and bald. Katya's seen girls waste away, their bodies betraying them while society blames them. The pain's not just physical, it's the daily humiliation of being a public woman, gawked at, judged, yet essential to the empire's unspoken economy. Comment time. What's the most infuriating part of the system to you? The debt traps or the elite's hypocrisy? Drop it below and let's keep the conversation hot. Now, let's swing to the empire's fringes, where the absurdity takes a wild turn. In Warsaw, under Russian rule, prostitution's a cultural flashpoint. Polish nationalists decry it as Russian corruption, while Russian officials shrug and collect taxes. By 1912, Warsaw has got thousands of registered prostitutes, and the streets are a bazaar of desperation. Girls as young as 14, some say, slipping through the cracks of lax enforcement. In the Far East, Vladivostok's still a hotbed of Japanese karaoke-san, now mixed with Chinese and Korean women, all servicing the port's endless stream of sailors. Some are spies feeding intel to Japan as tensions rise before World War I. Imagine Katya overhearing a client mutter about troop movements. Does she care? No, she's too busy surviving the night. The cultural lens sharpens the irony. Writers are obsessed. Kuprin's The Pit is a bestseller, painting brothels as hellscapes of human wreckage. Chekhov, ever the cynic, slips prostitutes into his stories as tragic figures, while the newspapers sensationalize white slavery scares. The public laps it up, tut-tutting over girls trafficked to the Ottoman Empire or South America, but does nothing. Why? Because the system's too entrenched. By 1913, Moscow's got 40,000 prostitutes registered and not, and the police are drowning in bribes. One report claims a single brothel could net an officer 500 rubles a month, big money when a worker's lucky to earn 20. Corruption's the glue holding this mess together, and Katya's caught in it, her yellow ticket a pass to nowhere. The pain deepens with the human cost. Suicide's a shadow over the trade. Girls jump into rivers, drink poison, or simply vanish. Hospitals are grim warehouses. One St. Petersburg clinic in 1911 reports 60% of its beds filled with syphilitic prostitutes, many dying before 30. Katya's seen it. A friend, Masha, who laughed off clients' cruelty until she didn't. One night, Masha's gone. Rumors say the Neva, but no one asks. Survival means shutting off your heart, but Katya's cracking. She's got a stash of rubles hidden under a floorboard, dreams of a dress shop, but the reality's brutal. Age out and you're on the streets begging or worse. The irony? The empire's moral crusaders, church, feminists, even early Bolsheviks, are starting to scream, but their solutions don't reach Katya. Feminists want regulation abolished. Socialists want the whole system burned down. Yet the Tsar's police keep the machine grinding. Let's talk resistance, because even in this nightmare, there's defiance. Some prostitutes form secret networks, sharing tips, hiding runaways, even bribing doctors for fake health certificates. Katya hears whispers of a strike in Moscow, 1910, where girls refuse clients until madams ease debts. It's crushed fast. Police don't mess around, but it's a spark. The absurdities in the response. Officials tighten rules, not loosen them, because control's the game. By 1914, war looms and prostitution spikes. Soldiers flood cities and demand soars. Katya's busier than ever, but the pay's worse. Inflation's eating her earnings, and the brothels packed with desperate new faces. Comment challenge. If you were in Katya's shoes, what's one rule you'd break to fight back? Share your rebel move below. I'm all ears. As we head to part 4, the empire's on its last legs, and the yellow ticket system's about to face its final test. Revolution's coming, but will it free Katya or bury her? The dark truth is this. In a world obsessed with purity, prostitutes are the scapegoats for society's sins, yet they keep the wheels turning. Stay tuned for the finale, where it all burns down. Keep those comments flowing. What's the wildest thing you've learned about this twisted world? Until next time, keep chasing history's shadows. Welcome back to the final act of our grim, sarcastic odyssey through the yellow-ticketed underworld of Tsarist Russia's prostitution scene, where survival's a knife-edge dance and the empire's hypocrisy could choke a cathedral. Katya, our weary heroine, is still trapped in the St. Petersburg brothel, her dreams of escape fading faster than a cheap dress in the rain. This is part 4, where the Romanov machine starts to sputter, revolution ignites, and the dark truth of prostitution faces its reckoning. Or does it? Expect scandals that singe noble eyebrows, pain that cuts deeper than a Cossack's whip, and absurdity so thick you'll need a vodka to wash it down. Drop a comment with the craziest thing you've learned from this series, and let's plunge into the chaos as the curtain falls on Tsarist Russia's seedy stage. It's 1914 and the world's on fire. World War I's kicking off and Russia's hurling itself into the meat grinder. Cities swell with soldiers, refugees, and desperation and prostitution. It's booming like never before. Katya's brothel is a madhouse. Clients pack the rooms, from officers on leave to factory workers drowning their fears in flesh. The yellow ticket system, that absurd bureaucratic beast, is stretched to breaking. Regulations can't keep up with the influx of new girls, many fleeing war-torn villages or abandoned by husbands drafted to the front. By 1916, estimates peg Moscow's prostitute count at 50,000, a mix of registered and underground workers. The streets are a carnival of desperation. Girls as young as 14 hawk themselves near barracks, dodging police who are too busy or too bribed to care. Katya's pushing 30 now, her body a map of scars and sores, her spirit battered but not quite broken. Survival's her only victory, but it's a hollow one. The absurdity hits new heights with the war's chaos. The state's still obsessed with control. Yellow tickets, medical checks, bans on indecent behavior. But it's a farce. Venereal diseases are a plague. One 1915 report claims 80% of urban prostitutes carry syphilis or gonorrhea, spreading it to soldiers who then infect wives and newborns. The medical police committee's a sick joke. Overworked doctors scribble clearances for bribes, and treatments like arsenic injections are as likely to kill as cure. Katya endures the exams, the cold instruments, the leering inspectors, but the real pain's in the mirror. She's aging out, her value dropping in a market flooded with younger faces. Madame Vera, her madam, squeezes harder. More clients, less pay, debts that grow like mold. The irony? The empire needs these women more than ever. Soldiers demand comfort, and brothels are unofficial morale stations. Yet society spits on them, calling them the root of moral decay. The empire needs these women more than ever. Soldiers demand comfort, and brothels are unofficial morale stations. Yet society spits on them, calling them the root of moral decay. The papers, censored but sneaky, hint at debauchery involving foreign diplomats and smuggled French wine. The public's outrage not at the girl's exploitation, but at the Count's indiscretion. He's exiled to a cushy post in the Caucasus. The girls? Shipped to clinics or worse. Another case rocks Moscow. A police chief's wife runs a secret brothel, funneling profits to her husband's cronies. When exposed, she claims it's charity for poor women. Oh, the nerve! The absurdities in the double standard. Men sin with impunity, women bear the shame. Katya hears these stories, whispered between clients, and scoffs. Justice? It's a fairy tale for the rich. Comment time. What's the most outrageous scandal you've heard in this series? The minister's raid or the police chief's wife? Drop it below. I'm all ears. Survival's the pulse of Katya's story, and it's brutal. The war's driven prices sky high. Bread's a luxury, rent's a nightmare. Katya's earnings vanish into Madame Vera's pockets or the black market for a scrap of meat. New girls flood the brothel, some trafficked from Poland or Ukraine, lured by fake job ads only to wake up locked in. White slavery panic grips the empire. Newspapers scream about girls sold to Turkish harems or Buenos Aires dens, but the police shrug. Why? Corruption's the lifeblood of the system. By 1916, a single brothel can net an officer 1,000 rubles a month in bribes, more than a general's salary. Katya's seen cops laugh with clients, sharing vodka while she patches a black eye from a rowdy soldier. The cultural mirror's unforgiving. Writers like Kuprin keep exposing the rot. His The Pit is banned in some circles for its raw truth about brothel life. Bolshevik agitators start whispering to prostitutes, promising liberation if the Tsar falls. Feminists, like Alexandra Kollontai, call the yellow ticket system state-sponsored slavery, but their voices are drowned by war drums. Katya doesn't care about politics. She's too busy dodging clients who pay with fists, yet resistance flickers. In 1916, a group of prostitutes in Kiev stages a quiet revolt, refusing work until medical checks are less invasive. It's crushed. Police beat the ringleaders, but the spark's there. Katya joins a secret network, passing tips on safe clients or hiding girls from raids. It's risky. One wrong move, and she's in a workhouse or worse. The pain's relentless. Suicide's a constant shadow. One night, a new girl, Lena, swallows laudanum after a client's cruelty. Katya finds her, too late, and the brothel moves on like nothing happened. Hospitals are death traps. One 1916 report says 70% of prostitute patients die before discharge, ravaged by disease or neglect. Katya's own health is crumbling. Syphilis symptoms flare, and the cures leave her dizzy and weak. She saved a few rubles, dreaming of a village far away, but the yellow ticket's a chain. Leaving means arrest. Staying means death by inches. The irony? The empire's collapsing, but the system that traps her is rock solid. Soldiers return from the front, broken and broke, yet still flock to brothels, spreading disease and despair. Then comes 1917, the empire's endgame. The February Revolution topples Nicholas II, and Petrograd streets explode with hope and chaos. Katya hears crowds chanting for bread, freedom, land. Prostitutes join strikes, some waving red flags, believing the Bolsheviks might burn the yellow tickets. But the provisional government's a mess, too busy fighting itself to care about fallen women. By October, Lenin's crew takes over and everything changes, or does it? The Bolsheviks vow to end prostitution, calling it a capitalist scourge. Yellow tickets are scrapped, brothels raided, Katya's free, technically, but freedom's a cruel joke when you're penniless and branded. The civil war looms, and survival's harder than ever. Food scarce, clients vanish or turn violent, and disease stalks unchecked. The dark truth? Prostitution doesn't die. It just changes clothes. The Soviet regime pushes it underground, where it's riskier but no less brutal. Katya, now in her 30s, faces a grim choice: starve, beg, or keep working in secret. Many choose the latter. By 1920, unregistered prostitution thrives in Moscow's shadows, with no yellow ticket but all the old pain. The absurdity's final sting: the czars are gone, but the system's ghost lingers. Women like Katya were never the problem. They were the scapegoats for a society that needed their bodies but scorned their souls. Comment challenge: if you were Katya in 1917, would you join the revolution or hide? Share your choice below and let's see your survival instincts. This saga's done, but the echoes remain. Prostitution in Tsarist Russia was a mirror of its contradictions: piety masking vice, order breeding chaos, survival demanding sacrifice. Katya's story, fictional but rooted in truth, reflects thousands of women who navigated a world that used them and discarded them. The pains in their erased names, the ironies in their enduring shadow. Thanks for diving into this nightmare with me. Keep those comments coming. Share your thoughts on Katya's fate, and let's keep history's shadows alive. Until next time, stay curious. Thanks for diving into this nightmare with me. Keep those comments coming. Share your thoughts on Katya's fate, and let's keep history's shadows alive. Until next time, stay curious. Hey guys, picture this. Behind the marble walls of the Vatican, where popes preach eternal purity and saints gaze down from frescoes, lurks a centuries-old soap opera of lust, betrayal, and power, grabs that would make modern tabloids blush. Welcome to the untold history of sex and scandal in the Holy See, where holiness often took a backseat to hedonism, and survival meant navigating a divine comedy of absurdity and pain. Before you get comfortable, please hit like and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do. Drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's dive together into today's journey. The Vatican, the eternal city's holy heart, where God's representatives on earth have been playing a game of thrones laced with forbidden desires since the days when emperors still wore togas. But let's not kid ourselves. This isn't a tale of saintly ascetics floating on clouds of incense. No, it's a sarcastic romp through historical absurdity, where popes fathered dynasties, cardinals hosted orgies, and the faithful suffered the fallout of celestial hypocrisy. We're talking survival in the rawest sense. Women traded as pawns, bastards clawing for legitimacy, and reformers burned at the stake for daring to call out the chaos. Buckle up, because this nightmare of history is as entertaining as it is excruciating. Let's start at the beginning, or close to it, the early church, when Christianity was still shaking off its Roman roots. Picture the 4th century. Constantine's just made Christianity the cool kid on the block, and popes are popping up like mushrooms after rain. But celibacy? That wasn't a hard rule yet. Priests married, had kids, and the Vatican's precursor was more family business than fortress of faith. Enter Pope Anastasius I around 400 AD, whose son Innocent I succeeded him. Nepotism before it had a fancy name. The absurdity? These holy men preached poverty while hoarding wealth, and survival for the average believer meant dodging the emperor's whims or barbarian invasions, all while tithing to a church that partied like pagans. Fast forward to the Dark Ages, where the papacy is a hot potato tossed between feuding families. The 9th century brings the pornocracy. Yes, that's a real term coined by historians with a sense of irony. It's the era of the Theophylacti family, who treated the papal throne like a family heirloom. Theodora, a senator's wife, and her daughter Marozia ran the show, installing popes like lovers in a bad romance novel. Marozia, dubbed the Senatrix of Rome, allegedly seduced Pope Sergius III, bore his son, who became Pope John XI, and married a string of kings. The pain? Women like Marozia survived in a man's world by wielding sex as a weapon, but history brands them whores while popes get halos. Absurd, right? As if the keys to heaven came with a side of bedroom politics. By the 10th century, the scandals pile up like unpaid indulgences. Pope John XII, crowned at 18 in 955, turns the Lateran Palace into a brothel. Chroniclers whisper of him ordaining a deacon in a stable, hunting with hounds instead of heretics, and sleeping with his father's mistress. Oh, and turning the Vatican into a harem where pilgrims' wives weren't safe. Liutprand of Cremona, a bishop with a poisoned pen, called him a monster without virtues. Survival for John? It meant dodging assassins and excommunications until Otto Remoer deposed him in 963. But the real agony was for the faithful. Imagine trekking to Rome for absolution, only to find the Pope mid-orgy. The irony drips like holy water, preaching chastity while practicing chaos. The 11th century tries to clean house with the Gregorian reforms, but hypocrisy lingers. Pope Gregory VII demands clerical celibacy in 1074, arguing married priests are too worldly. Yet many ignore it, fathering kids left and right. The pain of survival hits hard. Priests' wives, called concubines, are shunned, their children bastards denied inheritance. One reformer, Peter Damian, rants in his Book of Gomorrah about sodomy among clergy, scandalous accusations that get him sainted, while the accused burn. Absurdity alert, the church fights simony, buying offices, but turns a blind eye to popes like Benedict IX, who in the 1030s sells the papacy thrice, allegedly rapes pilgrims, and gets deposed for immoral conduct. He's the pope who resigned to marry, then changed his mind, talk about commitment issues. As we hit the high Middle Ages, the Vatican scandals go global with the Crusades. Pope Urban II in 1095 calls for holy war, promising indulgences for sins, including, ironically, the rapes and pillages crusaders commit, survival for women in conquered lands, a nightmare of violation under the cross. Back home, popes like Innocent III wield power like emperors, but sex scandals simmer. The 13th century sees the Albigensian Crusade slaughter Cathars, whose heresy included rejecting marriage, while the church's own ranks teem with fornicators. Enter the Renaissance, where the absurdity explodes in technicolor. The 15th century Vatican's a Medici bank branch with benefits. Pope Sixtus IV, 1471 to 1484, funds the Sistine Chapel, but also appoints his nephews, code for sons, as cardinals, licenses brothels in Rome for revenue, and allegedly has a thing for young boys. His nephew Riario hosts lavish parties where the wine flows and morals sink. The pain? Rome's prostitutes pay a courtesan tax to the church, surviving disease and violence while funding papal wars. Irony. The Holy See profits from sin it condemns. Then comes Alexander VI, the Borgia Pope, 1492 to 1503, the king of scandal. This Spanish schemer fathers at least 7 kids, including Cesare and Lucrezia, turning the Vatican into a family crime syndicate. He hosts the Banquet of Chestnuts in 1501, 50 courtesans, chestnuts on the floor, prizes for virility. Chronicler Johann Burchard details it with deadpan horror, popes and cardinals judging who beds whom most times. Absurd? Alexander excommunicates rivals while poisoning them, all while preaching piety. Survival for his enemies? Non-existent. Lucrezia, pawn in 3 marriages, survives rumors of incest and poison. Her pain a footnote in Borgia legend. Comment break. What's the wildest papal party you've heard of so far? The Banquet of Chestnuts or John XII's harem? Drop it below and let's debate. The 16th century brings the Reformation, a direct slap to Vatican vice. Martin Luther in 1517 nails his theses. ranting about indulgences funding papal luxuries, like Pope Leo X's 1513 to 1521, elephant parades and boy favorites. Leo, a Medici, hunts, gambles, and allegedly says, "God gave us the papacy, let us enjoy it." His survival? Dodging bankruptcy while selling salvation. The sack of Rome in 1527, Charles V's troops rape nuns and loot the Vatican, feels like karmic payback, but the real sufferers are innocents caught in the crossfire. Post-Reformation, the Counter-Reformation, tries to polish the tarnished tiara. The Council of Trent, 1545 to 1563, enforces celibacy, but scandals persist. Pope Paul IV, 1555 to 1559, burns Jews and heretics while his nephew Carlo Carafa strangles his wife for adultery. Family values, Vatican style. The pain of survival intensifies for outsiders. Witches burned, gays persecuted, all while clergy hide their own sins. Enter the Baroque era, where art masks iniquity. Pope Urban VIII, 1623 to 1644, builds Bernini's masterpieces but nepotizes his family into fortunes, prompting Galileo's trial for heresy because science threatens the absurd claim of papal infallibility. Meanwhile, the 17th century sees the affair of the poisons tangentially touch Rome, but Vatican scandals stay homegrown. Pope Innocent X, 1644 to 1655, falls under the spell of his sister-in-law Olympia Maidalcini, dubbed La Papessa, who allegedly controls access to his bed and decisions. Whispers of incestuous influence abound, her survival hinging on manipulating a pope who paints her portrait by Velázquez as a stern matron. Absurdity, a woman ruling through the back door in a church that bars female priests. The 18th century Enlightenment casts a satirical light on Vatican follies. Pope Clement XIV, 1769 to 1774, suppresses the Jesuits but dies amid poison rumors. Paranoia's the papal perk. Survival for reformers? Precarious. The church clings to power as revolutions brew. By the 19th century, the Vatican's a relic in a modern world. Pope Pius IX, 1846 to 1878, declares infallibility in 1870, while losing temporal power to Italy. Ironic, as his early reign sees scandals like the Mortara affair, kidnapping a Jewish boy for baptism. The pain? Families torn apart by holy hubris. As we approach the 20th century, scandals modernize. Pope Pius X, 1903 to 1914, fights modernism but ignores internal rot. Then World War I ravages Europe, and the Vatican plays neutral while priests grapple with celibacy in trenches. But the real bombshells await in Part 2, fascist flirtations, abuse cover-ups, and scandals that rock the modern church. Comment time. If you were a Renaissance pope, what absurd luxury would you indulge in? Share below. I read them all. We're just warming up. The nightmare deepens with every century. Stick around for Part 2, where the absurdity hits papal peaks and the pain of hidden sins explodes. Until then, ponder the holy hypocrisy and keep those comments coming. Alright, let's dive back into the Vatican's sordid soap opera, where the incense swirls, the halos tarnish, and the scandals keep piling up like unpaid indulgences. We left off with the church teetering between Renaissance decadence and Reformation backlash, a circus of holy hypocrisy where popes played emperors and survival meant navigating a cesspool of lust and power. This is part 2 of our sarcastic, pain-laced journey through the untold history of sex and scandal in the Vatican, where the absurdities soar higher than St. Peter's Dome, and the stakes are eternal, or at least until the next coup. Drop a comment with the wildest Vatican tale from part 1 that stuck with you, and let's wade deeper into this divine dumpster fire. It's the late 16th century, and the Counter-Reformation's in full swing, trying to polish the Vatican's image after Luther's pesky theses exposed its underbelly. The Council of Trent, 1545 to 1563, doubled down on celibacy, slamming the door on priestly marriages. But here's the irony. Enforcing chastity just made the scandals juicier. Take Pope Sixtus V, 1585 to 1590, a former shepherd turned hardliner, who's busy excommunicating heretics while Rome's clergy sneak into brothels. The city's a paradox. Pilgrims flood in for Jubilee years, dropping coins for salvation, while courtesans like Imperia, the queen of Roman prostitutes, entertain cardinals in villas funded by church tithes. Imperia's no myth, she's a real figure, bedding the elite while her son's rumored to be a cardinal's bastard. Survival for her? It's playing the game, charm, seduce, secure a pension before beauty fades. The pain? She's dead by 40, likely from disease or poison, her name a whisper in Vatican gossip. The absurdity peaks in the 17th century as the Baroque era drapes sin in gilded art. Pope Urban VIII, 1623 to 1644. The Bernini patron is all about grandeur, colonnades, fountains, you name it, but his family's no saintly crew. His nephew Taddeo Barberini throws lavish parties where courtesans mingle with clerics, and rumors swirl of Urban's own special friendships with young men. Chronicler Gregorio Leti, a snarky Protestant, writes of Vatican orgies where cardinals bet on who lasts longest. Sound familiar? It's Banquet of Chestnuts 2.0, just with better wigs. Meanwhile, the pain hits the powerless hardest. Priests' concubines, now illegal post-Trent, face exile or worse. Their kids, branded bastards, beg on Rome's streets. Survival means silence, because snitching on a bishop gets you a one-way ticket to the Tiber. Let's zoom to the 18th century, where Enlightenment ideas start poking holes in the Vatican's aura. Pope Clement XIII, 1758 to 1769, fights secularism, but his court's a hotbed of intrigue. His Secretary of State, Cardinal Torrigiani, is caught in a scandal involving a young seminarian. Details are hushed, but the gossip's loud enough to reach Paris. Voltaire, that sharp-tongued skeptic, mocks the Vatican as a den of vice while popes ban his books. The irony? The church preaches moral absolutism but can't keep its own house clean. Survival for reformers like the Jansenists, who push for austerity, is a tightrope. Say too much and you're excommunicated. Say too little and you're irrelevant. The pain's in the hypocrisy. Rome's brothels thrive, taxed by the church, while heretics burn for questioning dogma. By the 19th century, the Vatican's a relic in a world of revolutions. Pope Pius IX, 1846 to 1878. Pio IX starts as a liberal but turns hardline, declaring himself infallible in 1870, while losing Rome to Italian unification. Scandals? Oh, they're plentiful. The Mortara affair of 1858 is a gut punch. A Jewish boy, Edgardo Mortara, is secretly baptized by a servant, then kidnapped by the church because Christians can't be raised by Jews. Pius IX personally defends the act, sparking global outrage. The pain? A family shattered, a boy brainwashed, all for papal pride. The absurdity? Pius claims divine right while his papal states crumble, and rumors swirl of his own indiscretions with young guards. Survival for Jews in Rome means hiding faith or fleeing. For Pius, it's clinging to a shrinking throne. Comment break. What's the most infuriating Vatican move so far? Kidnapping Mortara or taxing brothels? Drop it below and let's vent. Now, let's hit the 20th century, where scandals get a modern makeover. World War I rages, and Pope Benedict XV, 1914 to 1922, plays neutral, but his clergy don't. Priests in war-torn Europe break celibacy vows left and right, fathering kids in trenches or villages. The Vatican looks away. War's messy, after all. But the pain's real for women left pregnant and shunned. Post-war, the 1920s bring Mussolini, and the Vatican's cozying up. The Lateran Treaty of 1929, signed by Pope Pius XI, gives the Vatican statehood but ties it to fascism's apron strings. Whispers of priests blessing black-shirt rallies clash with tales of secret liaisons in Roman seminaries. Survival for the church? It's about power, not purity. Align with dictators, ignore the moral rot. Then comes World War II and the scandals darken. Pope Pius XII, 1939 to 1958, is a lightning rod. Silent on the Holocaust, he's accused of complicity, though defenders claim he saved Jews quietly. The truth's murkier, but internal scandals don't stop. Vatican archives, later cracked open, hint at priests exploiting war's chaos. Black market deals, affairs with refugees, even abuse of orphans in church-run homes. The pain? Victims silenced, their stories buried in papal bureaucracy. The absurdity? Pius XII excommunicates communists but not Nazis, while his own ranks harbor predators. Post-war, the Vatican's a Cold War player, funneling money to anti-Soviet causes, but rumors of financial scandals, shady bank deals, mafia ties start bubbling. Cardinal Spellman of New York, a Vatican ally, faces whispers of homosexuality, ignored because he's too powerful. Survival for whistleblowers? Near impossible. The church's walls are thick. The 1960s bring Vatican II, a reform push under Pope John XXIII, but sex scandals fester. Paul VI, 1963 to 1978, reaffirms celibacy in 1967, just as reports of clerical abuse surface in Ireland, Canada, and the US. The Vatican's response? Silence or cover-up, moving priests to new parishes like pieces on a chessboard. The pain's unbearable, children violated, families gaslit, all while the church preaches love. The irony? Paul VI's Humani Vitae bans contraception for laypeople, but clergy dodge accountability for graver sins. By the 1970s, the Banco Ambrosiano scandal ties the Vatican to mafia money laundering. Archbishop Paul Marcinkus, head of the Vatican Bank, is implicated but untouchable, hiding behind Vatican sovereignty. Absurd, right? A bank for God's work, funding mobsters. Enter Pope John Paul II, 1978 to 2005. The rock star pope, but scandals shadow his reign. The Legion of Christ's founder, Martial Maciel, is a darling of John Paul, until it's revealed he's a serial abuser, molesting seminarians and fathering kids. The Vatican drags its feet. Maciel's protected until 2006 after John Paul's death. The pain? Decades of victims ignored, their trauma dismissed as gossip. The absurdity? The church canonizes saints while shielding predators. Meanwhile, Rome's still a city of contrasts. Tourists pray in saint. Peterswell prostitutes work the streets, some say with Vatican clients. Survival for victims means breaking silence, but the church's instinct is to bury, not heal. Comment challenge. If you were a Vatican whistleblower, what scandal would you expose first? Share below. I'm curious. As we head to part 3, the modern era beckons with abuse cover-ups, financial filth, and popes dodging bullets, literal and figurative. The Vatican's still a fortress of faith, but its foundations crack under the weight of its own contradictions. The pain of survival, for victims, for reformers, for the faithful, meets the absurdity of a church preaching purity while swimming in sin. Keep those comments coming. Tell me what shocked you most about this holy mess. Until next time, stay sharp and question the halos. Here we go again, diving headfirst into the Vatican's scandal-soaked saga, where the scent of incense barely masks the stench of hypocrisy. We left off with the church stumbling through the 20th century, dodging bullets from wars, dictators, and its own moral failures. This is part 3 of our sardonic, pain-drenched journey through the untold history of sex and scandal in the Vatican, where popes juggle halos and secrets, and survival means outwitting a system as old as sin itself. The absurdity's about to hit fever pitch. Think financial conspiracies, abuse cover-ups, and a church that preaches salvation while drowning in its own contradictions. Drop a comment with the most jaw-dropping Vatican scandal from parts 1 or 2, and let's plunge into this holy mess. It's the late 20th century, and the Vatican's riding a tightrope between global influence and internal rot. Pope John Paul II, 1978 to 2005, is the rockstar pontiff, packing stadiums with charisma, but the shadows are long. The Banco Ambrosiano scandal of 1982 is a blockbuster. Vatican Bank's Archbishop Paul Marcinkus is neck-deep in a $1.3 billion collapse tied to mafia money laundering. Calvi, the bank's head, ends up swinging under London's Blackfriars Bridge. Suicide or murder, nobody's sure, but the Vatican's fingerprints are everywhere. Marcinkus, dubbed God's banker, hides behind Vatican sovereignty untouchable. The irony? The church, guardian of souls, is laundering cash for mobsters while John Paul blesses the poor. Survival for Marcinkus, stonewall and pray. For whistleblowers, it's a career death sentence. The pain hits harder with the clergy abuse crisis, bubbling under but exploding soon. By the 1980s, reports of priests molesting children surface in the US, Ireland, and Australia. The Vatican's playbook? Deny, deflect, relocate. Father John Gayogan in Boston, later exposed for abusing over 130 kids, is shuffled between parishes like a bad card in a rigged deck. John Paul's team knows. Letters from bishops beg for action, but silence reigns. The absurdity? Humanae Vitae bans condoms, but predator priests get a pass. Victims, mostly boys, face shame and disbelief. Their families are gaslit by bishops wielding spiritual authority like a club. Survival for these kids means burying trauma, often for decades, while the church polishes its image. Comment break. What's more infuriating? The Vatican banks mafia ties or the abuse cover-ups. Drop it below and let's rage together. Let's talk Martial Maciel, the Legion of Christ's founder and John Paul's golden boy. By the 1990s, whispers of his crimes, molesting seminarians, fathering kids, maybe drug abuse, reach Rome. Victims, some as young as 12 when abused, write to the Vatican, but Maciel's untouchable, raking in millions for the church. The pain? Decades of silenced voices, seminarians groomed into submission, families bribed or bullied. The irony? John Paul fast-tracks saints but ignores Maciel's victims until 2006, after his death, when Benedict XVI finally sidelines him. Absurdly, Maciel's legacy lingers. His order thrives, funded by blood money. The 1990s see Rome's underbelly exposed. Prostitution still hums near the Vatican. Via dei Condoti's glitz fades into back alleys where sex workers, some say, serve low-ranking clergy. The church taxes sin indirectly. Rome's economy leans on pilgrims and vice alike. Survival for these women echoes the Renaissance courtesans. Dodge disease, dodge cops. Pray for a rich client before age or AIDS claims you. Meanwhile, the Vatican's moralizing hits fever pitch. John Paul's theology of the body preaches sex as sacred, but the subtext is clear. Lay people obey, clergy skate. The pains in the double standard. Seminarians abused, prostitutes ignored, while the faithful are fed platitudes. As the millennium turns, the abuse scandal breaks wide open. The Boston Globe's 2002 expose on Gayogan and others blows the lid off, revealing a global pattern. Ireland's Ferns report, Australia's royal commissions, thousands of victims, decades of cover-ups. Cardinal Bernard Law, Boston's archbishop, resigns in disgrace but gets a cushy Vatican post. The absurdity? He's rewarded for failure while victims beg for justice. John Paul, frail but defiant, calls it a media exaggeration, but the floodgates are open. The pain's raw. Survivors, now adults, relive nightmares in courtrooms, facing church lawyers who smear their credibility. Survival means speaking out, but at what cost? Depression, suicide, broken families. The church's betrayal cuts deeper than the abuse. Benedict XVI, 2005 to 2013, inherits the mess. A scholar pope, he's no reformer. In 2010, leaks reveal his role as Cardinal Ratzinger in the 1980s, quashing abuse investigations to protect the church's image. Ireland's Magdalen Laundry scandal breaks too. Women, often prostitutes or fallen girls, enslaved in church-run workhouses until the 1990s, washing linens for bishops while enduring abuse. The irony? Benedict condemns secularism but ignores nuns beating girls for sins. Survival for these women meant enduring starvation, beatings, and stolen babies. Some laundries sold infants to wealthy Americans. The pain's generational. Survivors in their 70s still seek apologies. Comment challenge. If you could confront one figure, Marcinkus, Law, or Maciel, what would you say? Share below. I'm all ears. The financial scandals keep pace. The Vatican Bank, post-Ambrosiano, faces new heat in the 2000s. Money laundering for Italian elites, shady real estate deals, $200 million in questionable transactions by 2010 per leaked cables. Benedict fires bank head Tedeschi in 2012, but the rot's deep. The absurdity? The Vatican, a sovereign state, dodges EU regulations while preaching poverty. Survival for insiders means loyalty to the machine. For reformers, it's exile or silence. Meanwhile, Rome's sex trade hums. Migrant women from Africa and Eastern Europe work near Vatican walls, some claiming priests as clients. The church looks away, as always. Benedict's reign ends with a shock. Resignation in 2013. the first in 600 years. Whispers of blackmail swirl, a gay lobby in the Curia, priests caught in saunas, dossiers on cardinal sins. Vati leaks, a 2012 scandal, exposes butler Paolo Gabriele leaking documents about corruption and inappropriate relationships among clergy. The pain? The faithful, betrayed again, question a church that hides more than it heals. The irony? Benedict, who railed against homosexuality, presided over a curia where it's an open secret. Celibacy's the rule, but not the reality. Survival for Gabriele? A papal pardon, but he's ostracized. Pope Francis, 2013 to present, arrives as a breath of fresh air, humble, outspoken, promising reform. But the scandals don't stop. In 2018, Chile's abuse crisis explodes. Bishops resign en masse after covering up priestly crimes. Francis initially defends them, then backtracks, admitting grave errors. The pain? Victims like Juan Carlos Cruz endure decades of dismissal before Francis meets them. The absurdity? Francis pushes zero tolerance but keeps Cardinal George Pell, convicted, then acquitted of abuse, as a financial czar until 2017. The Vatican bank's still a mess. 2020 sees Cardinal Becciu sacked for funneling $200 million to shady investments, including London properties. Survival for Francis means juggling reform and resistance. For victims, it's a slow grind for justice. The modern Vatican's a paradox, global moral voice, yet a magnet for scandal. Sex trafficking near St. Peter's persists. A 2019 sting busts a ring serving high-profile clients with whispers of clerical ties. The church condemns sin but profits from Rome's vice economy. Hotels, rentals, all tied to Vatican wealth. The pains in the margins, migrant sex workers, abused children, silenced whistleblowers. The irony? Francis washes feet of the poor, but can't wash away centuries of complicity. As we head to part 4, the stakes rise. Digital leaks, global reckoning, and a church facing its demons or dodging them. Comment time. What's the most shocking modern scandal? Vata leaks or the laundries? Drop it below and keep this fire burning. Stay tuned for the finale, where the Vatican's past and present collide in a blaze of absurdity and pain. Until then, question everything and keep those halos skeptical. Here we are, plunging into the final act of the Vatican's scandal-soaked epic, where the sacred and the sordid tango in a dance as old as the papacy itself. We've watched popes juggle piety and vice, from Renaissance orgies to modern cover-ups, while the faithful pay the price for a church that preaches salvation but often delivers betrayal. This is part 4 of our sarcastic, pain-laced journey through the untold history of sex and scandal in the Vatican, where absurdity reigns supreme, and survival means navigating a maze of hypocrisy sharper than a cardinal's dagger. Expect digital leaks, global reckonings, and a church still wrestling with its demons, or dodging them. Drop a comment with the most shocking scandal from the last 3 parts, and let's dive into the finale of this holy nightmare. It's the 2010s, and Pope Francis, 2013 to present, is the new kid on the papal block, riding in on promises of humility and reform. He's washing prisoners' feet, living in a guest house, and tweeting about mercy, but the Vatican's shadows are stubborn. The abuse crisis, that festering wound, keeps bleeding. In 2018, the Pennsylvania grand jury report drops a bombshell. Over 1,000 victims, 300 predator priests, decades of cover-ups. Bishops knew, shuffled abusers, and silenced kids with hush money or threats of hell. The pain? Survivors, now adults, relived trauma in court, their faith shattered by men in collars. The irony? Francis preaches zero tolerance, but the Vatican's slow to defrock priests. Some, like Theodore McCarrick, a U.S. cardinal, climb to power despite whispers of abusing seminarians. McCarrick's laicized in 2019, but only after public pressure. Survival for victims means screaming into a void. For the church, it's damage control. The absurdity spikes with financial scandals. The Vatican Bank, that old mafia magnet, is back in the headlines. In 2020, Cardinal Angelo Becciu sacked for funneling $200 million into shady London real estate deals. Think penthouses, not poorhouses. Leaked emails show Vatican cash flowing to offshore accounts, some tied to Italian elites. Becciu claims he's framed, but the trial drags on, exposing a curia where loyalty trumps ethics. The irony? Francis, the poor church pope, oversees a bank with 5 billion euros in assets, dodging EU transparency laws thanks to Vatican sovereignty. Survival for reformers like Libero Malone, the Vatican's first auditor, means resignation or worse. He's ousted in 2017 for digging too deep. The pains in the faithful who donate to charity but fund corruption instead. Comment break: what's more infuriating, Beccu's real estate scam or McCarrick's free pass? Drop it below and let's unpack this mess. Let's talk sex trafficking because Rome's underbelly never sleeps. In 2019, Italian police bust a ring near St. Peter's servicing high-profile clients. Some whisper of Vatican ties, low-ranking clerics caught in sting operations. Migrant women from Nigeria, Romania, and beyond work the streets, exploited by pimps while the church condemns trafficking but profits from Rome's vice economy. Hotels owned by Vatican-linked groups charge pilgrims steep rates, indirectly fueled by the city's sex trade. The pain? These women face violence, disease, and deportation, their stories ignored while tourists snap selfies in St. Peter's Square. The absurdity? Francis rails against modern slavery but can't clean his own backyard. The digital age amps up the scandals. In 2021, a Grindr outage during a Vatican conference sparks snickers. Data suggests heavy app use in the Curia. Whispers of a gay lobby resurface, echoing 2013's Vatileaks, where leaked dossiers exposed priests in compromising saunas. Celibacy's the rule, but not the reality. Some estimate 15 to 50% of clergy are gay, living in secrecy or hypocrisy. The pains and the double lives, priests shamed for their nature, forced to hide while preaching purity. The irony? Francis says, "Who am I to judge?" but keeps celibacy mandatory, fueling a culture of denial. Survival for these priests means silence. For the church, it's dodging headlines. Then there's the global reckoning. Australia's 2017 Royal Commission finds 7% of Catholic clergy abused kids from the 1950s to 2010s, 4,444 victims, countless cover-ups. Ireland's 2021 Mother and Baby Homes Report exposes church-run institutions where 9,000 infants died and fallen women, often prostitutes, were enslaved. The Vatican's response? Apologies, but no reparations. Francis meets survivors, but critics call it PR. The pain's generational. Survivors in their 80s still beg for justice, their children adopted or dead. The absurdity? The church canonizes saints like Mother Teresa while her orders home starved kids. Survival for victims means reliving trauma. For the church, it's clinging to moral authority. Comment challenge. If you were Francis, what's one rule you'd change to stop the scandals? Share below. I'm curious. The 2000s bring new heat. In 2023, a Vatican priest is caught in a sting, soliciting a minor online, defrocked, but the case reignites fury. Social media amplifies leaks. Posts expose alleged Vatican escorts, unnamed clerics paying for silence. The church tightens cybersecurity, but the genie's out. Every scandal's a viral thread. Rome's sex trade persists. A 2024 report estimates 7,000 sex workers in the city, some claiming Vatican clients. The irony? Francis's synods push inclusion, women, LGBTQ+, but the Curia resists and scandals fester. The pains in the margins, trans sex workers, abused seminarians, silenced whistleblowers. The Vatican's a paradox, a 2,000-year-old fortress of faith, yet a magnet for scandal. Celibacy, meant to elevate, breeds secrecy. Wealth, meant for charity, fuels corruption. The pains in the betrayed, kids abused, women trafficked, faithful misled. The absurdity? A church preaching love while shielding predators, profiting from vice while condemning it. Francis tries reform, defrocking more priests than predecessors, auditing the bank. But the system's entrenched. Survival for him means battling a Curia that's half ally, half enemy. For victims, it's a fight for truth against a machine that buries it. Let's reflect on history's echo. From the banquet of chestnuts to Vatileaks, the Vatican scandals follow a pattern. Power protects itself, the powerless pay. Renaissance courtesans like Imperia survived by charm. Modern victims, like Pennsylvania survivors, survive by speaking. The irony: the church's moral voice grows louder as its sins pile up. Today, Francis walks a tightrope: reform or retrench, open or obscure. The pains in the unresolved. Thousands of abuse cases linger, bank probes stall, and Rome's streets still hum with exploitation. The absurdities in the contrast. Pilgrims pray under Michelangelo's frescoes while scandals simmer below. Comment time. What's the most shocking thing about the Vatican's history? Centuries of cover-ups or its modern defiance? Drop it below and keep this fire alive. This saga's done, but the shadows remain. The Vatican's story is a mirror of human contradiction. Faith versus failure, sanctity versus sin. The pains in the silenced voices, from medieval bastards to modern survivors. The ironies in the endurance, a church that claims eternity but can't escape its past. Thanks for diving into this nightmare with me. Keep those comments coming. Tell me what you'd change about this holy mess. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning the halos. Hey guys, picture this. In the misty courts of ancient China, where emperors wielded brushes like swords and Confucian scholars preached filial piety, same-sex lovers whispered secrets that could topple dynasties or inspire poetry. Welcome to the untold history of same-sex relationships in ancient China, a world where cutting your sleeve for a boyfriend became a euphemism for eternal devotion, but survival meant dodging the axe of societal errors and hidden heartbreaks. Before you get comfortable, please hit like and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do. Drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's dive together into today's journey. Ancient China, the land of silk roads, terracotta armies, and a social order so rigid it could crack under the weight of a single forbidding glance. But beneath the Confucian facade of harmony and hierarchy lurked a vibrant, ironic undercurrent of same-sex desires. Where emperors bedded male favorites with the same flair, they conquered kingdoms, and poets immortalized love affairs that society pretended were just close friendships. We're talking about a history dripping with absurdity, men sharing pillows like state secrets, women rubbing mirrors in hidden chambers, and a culture that tolerated homoerotic flings as long as you popped out, heirs to keep the ancestral altars smoking. Yet, the pain of survival was real. Women's stories erased like faint ink on bamboo scrolls, men executed for peeping too passionately, and everyone navigating a world where desire could elevate you to palace heights or bury you in unmarked graves. Let's start at the dawn of it all, shall we? Picture the Shang dynasty, around the 16th to 11th centuries BCE, when oracle bones etched with divinations hinted at the earliest whispers of male homosexuality. According to scholars like Fang Fu Ruan, the first records pop up here. Kings consulting bones about dreams of same-sex encounters, perhaps pondering if the gods approved of their nocturnal fancies. Absurd, isn't it? These Bronze Age rulers, sacrificing oxen to ancestors, while scribbling queries about boy-on-boy action like it's a cosmic weather report. But survival in Shang times was brutal. Famine, floods, and barbarian raids meant love was a luxury, and same-sex dalliances? Probably a fleeting escape from the grind of oracle cracking and ritual beheadings. No grand romances documented yet, just hints like smoke from a distant incense burner, teasing what was to come. Fast forward to the Zhou dynasty, 1046 to 256 BCE, where the passion of Long Yang enters the lexicon, named after Lord Long Yang, the favorite of King Ungxi of Wei. This guy was so beloved that when the king caught a bigger fish on a boat trip, Long Yang wept, fearing replacement, prompting the king to ban any talk of better fish in his presence. Oh, the irony. A monarch who could command armies but melted for a man's tears, turning jealousy into a state decree. It's like if your boss outlawed compliments to rivals because his boyfriend got insecure. Absurd court politics at its finest. Zhou society, with its feudal lords and warring states, viewed same-sex relations as a perk of power. Elite men could indulge without stigma, as long as they fulfilled duties like marrying and siring sons. The pain? For lower classes, survival meant toiling in fields or dying in battles, with no time for poetic passions. Same-sex love was an aristocratic game, leaving peasants to heteronormative drudgery. Women? Barely a whisper, their desires hidden in the shadows of patriarchal scrolls, perhaps mirroring each other in quiet defiance, but history's quill was held by men, so their stories faded like autumn leaves. Enter the Qin dynasty, 221 to 206 BCE, that short-lived empire of unification and tyranny under the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. No direct tales of gay exploits here, but the era's legalism, harsh laws, book burnings, set a tone of control that ironically foreshadowed later crackdowns on deviance. Survival was a nightmare. Forced labor on the Great Wall, where thousands perished, meant desires took a back seat to not getting buried alive. Yet, the seeds of tolerance persisted, bubbling into the Han Dynasty, 206 BCE, 220 CE, the golden age of Chinese bisexuality, where emperors treated male favorites like rock stars. All 10 Western Han emperors were openly bisexual, each with a male favorite who got titles, wealth, and palace perks. Take Emperor Gaozu, the founder, and his boy Jiru. Gaozu showered him with favors, while still fathering heirs with his empress. Absurd? Absolutely. These rulers preached Confucian virtue but lived like pansexual playboys, their courts a swirl of silk robes and stolen glances. The most famous? Emperor Ai and Dong Xian, whose cut-sleeve story became the ultimate gay euphemism. Ai, so smitten, sliced his imperial sleeve rather than disturb Dong's nap, talk about relationship goals in an era of ritual sacrifices. Dong rose from lowly origins to Grand Marshal, his family basking in riches until Ai's death in 1 BCE. Then, the pain hit. Court intrigue forced Dong and his wife to suicide, their bodies denied proper burial, a stark reminder that love in high places was a double-edged sword. Survival meant playing the game. Dong's rapid rise was envied, leading to his downfall, while Ai's attempt to pass the throne to him sparked rebellion. Han literature romanticized these affairs. Sima Qian's Records of the Grand Historian lists favorites without judgment, treating them like any consort. The bitten peach tale from Duke Ling of Wei and Mizi Xia, where Mizi shared a half-eaten peach, symbolizing devotion, turned sour when Mizi aged, and the Duke accused him of crimes, executing him. Ironic cruelty. Love praised in youth, punished in decline, a painful echo of how fleeting favor could be. For women, hints emerge. Duai Shi, or paired eating, suggested lesbian acts, but records are scarce, their survival tied to harems where same-sex comfort might have been a secret solace amid imperial neglect. Comment time. What's the most romantic yet absurd story so far? The cut sleeve or the bitten peach? Drop it below and let's debate. The Han's tolerance wasn't universal. Confucianism stressed family continuity, so exclusive homosexuality was frowned upon, like a bad investment in the ancestral stock market. Yet, bisexuality thrived, with emperors marrying women for duty and loving men for pleasure. Pain lurked in the power imbalances. Favorites were often younger, lower status men, essentially concubines without the title, their survival hinging on the emperor's whim. One wrong move, like Emperor Wen's favorite Deng Tong, who sucked pus from the emperor's boil. Devotion, only to starve after Wen's death when rivals cut off his funds. Absurd loyalty rewarded with destitution. History's way of saying, thanks for the pus-sucking, now beg. As the Han splintered into the Three Kingdoms, 220 to 280 CE, same-sex tales persisted. In the Wei Kingdom, Cao Cao's son Cao Zhi wrote homoerotic poetry, blurring lines between brotherly love and something steamier. Survival amid civil war meant alliances forged in bedrooms, where desire could seal deals or spark betrayals. The Jin dynasty, 266 to 420 CE, continued the trend with Emperor Wu and his favorites, but Buddhism's arrival introduced new layers, monks vowing celibacy, yet tales of temple tryst hinted at hidden passions. Ironic, a religion preaching detachment fostering secret attachments. The southern and northern dynasties, 420 to 589 CE, saw Nanfeng, or southern custom, emerge as a term for male homosexuality, especially in Fujian, where it was so common it became a regional stereotype. Absurd regional branding. Oh, you're from the south? must love the lads. But pain followed, social stigma for the passive partner, seen as feminine, echoing patriarchal absurdities where bottoming equaled weakness. Women? Still ghosts in the records, their mirror rubbing, mo jing, a euphemism for lesbian acts, survival meaning invisibility in a male-dominated narrative. By the Sui dynasty, 581 to 618 CE, unification brought stability, but same-sex love remained elite fare. Emperor Yang, infamous for excesses, had male companions amid his harem, his reign ending in assassination. Desire drowned in debauchery. The Tang dynasty, 618 to 907 CE, dialed up the glamour. Poets like Li Bai waxed lyrical about male beauty, and Emperor Xuanzong's court buzzed with homoerotic vibes. But here's the twist. Opposition crept in, with some scholars decrying it as unfilial for not producing kids. Ironic, a dynasty famed for openness starting the slow slide toward conservatism. Survival for lovers meant discretion. Public flaunting could invite ridicule or worse. Female same-sex relationships peeked through. Stone mill or grinding tofu terms emerged, hinting at intimate acts in women's quarters, where survival amid polygamy meant finding solace in each other. Yet, pain in the erasure. No grand epics for them, just whispers. The 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms, 907 to 960 CE, were chaotic, wars fragmenting the land, same-sex bonds perhaps forged in battle camaraderie, but records are spotty. Survival trumped romance. Then the Song dynasty, 960 to 1279 CE, where homosexuality became fashionable for both sexes, per some sources. Emperor Huizong collected male beauties like art pieces, his court a gallery of desire. Absurd, an emperor more interested in boys than borders, leading to Jurchen invasions. Painful fallout, captivity and humiliation for the elite, their loves lost in exile. Literature flourished, stories of allied brothers swearing oaths, blending fraternity with eros. For women, Golden Orchid associations in Guangdong allowed same-sex marriages, a rare nod to lesbian bonds, but survival meant navigating family pressures. Comment challenge: if you were an ancient Chinese emperor, would you cut your sleeve or share a peach? Share below. I'm dying to know. As we wrap part 1, the absurdity shines, a culture celebrating same-sex love through poetry, yet chaining it to air production. The pain lives cut short by intrigue, women's desires buried, all while dynasties rose and fell on whims. We're just warming up. Tang's glamour fades into Yuan crackdowns ahead. Stick around for part 2, but first, ponder. Could you survive as a male favorite? Drop your thoughts below and keep this ancient flame alive. Alright, let's dive back into the silk and shadow world of ancient China, where same-sex love was both a poetic muse and a dangerous game, played out against a backdrop of imperial splendor and Confucian straitjackets. We left off in the Song dynasty, with emperors collecting boyfriends like rare scrolls and women forging secret bonds in the cracks of a patriarchal fortress. This is part 2 of our sarcastic, pain-soaked journey through the untold history of same-sex relationships in ancient China, where the absurdity of forbidden passion meets the raw struggle to survive in a society that loves your poetry, but loathes your heart. Drop a comment with the wildest story from part 1, cut sleeve or bitten peach, and let's wade deeper into this historical fever dream. We're in the late Song dynasty, 960 to 1279 CE, where the air is thick with incense, war drums, and the rustle of silk robes hiding forbidden desires. Homosexuality is practically haute couture among the elite. Emperor Huizong's court is a revolving door of male beauties, each vying for a slice of imperial favor. Picture it, a palace glittering with jade and poetry, where scholars wax lyrical about southern customs while sipping tea and eyeing their allied brothers. The term nanfeng is in vogue, a nod to male love so common in Fujian it's basically a regional trademark. Absurd, right? Like branding a province for its dating preferences. Imagine California dubbed the Tinder state. But here's the irony. While poets like Su Shu pen homoerotic verses, Confucian sticklers start grumbling. Same-sex flings are fine for the literati, as long as you marry sire heirs and keep the ancestral altar smoking. Step out of line, and you're a disgrace to your lineage, your survival hanging on a thread of family honor. The pain hits hardest for the powerless. Take Wei, a fictional but plausible young man from a merchant family in Kaifeng. He's no lord, just a scribe with a knack for calligraphy and a crush on a local poet. Their late-night ink sessions turn steamy, but Wei's caught by his father, who's less worried about the poetry than the lack of grandchildren. In Song Society, being openly gay isn't the crime. Failing to produce heirs is. Wei's disowned, forced to scrape by as a tutor, his lover vanishing to a safer city. The absurdity? Society winks at elite dalliances but crushes commoners for the same. Survival means conforming or disappearing. Wei chooses the latter, fading into the urban sprawl, his heart a casualty of duty. Women's stories are even murkier, their survival a silent battle. The song's Golden Orchid associations in Guangdong let women swear lifelong bonds, some openly lesbian, like sisters in arms dodging arranged marriages. These self-combed women refuse husbands, live together, and work silk looms. But it's no fairy tale. Families often shun them, and without male protection, they face poverty or worse. Bandit raids, forced betrothals. The pains in the erasure, their mirror-rubbing love leaves faint traces in poems, like a song-era Sappho whispering through bamboo. Absurdly, their defiance is tolerated only if it's quiet. Step too far, and you're branded a rebel against filial piety, a sin worse than murder in Confucius' book. Comment time. What's more absurd? The emperor's boy toy collection, or women swearing off men in a Confucian world? Drop it below and let's unpack it. The Yuan dynasty, 1271 to 1368 CE, crashes in, Mongol hooves trampling song elegance. Kublai Khan's crew brings a new vibe, less poetry, more pragmatism, but same-sex love doesn't vanish. Mongol warriors used to all-male camps carry on with sworn brothers, their oaths blending loyalty with eros. In the Yuan court, Persian influences mix with Chinese traditions, and male favorites still snag titles. But here's the twist. The Mongols, less hung up on Confucian heir obsession, tolerate same-sex bonds more openly, until they don't. A 1320 edict bans male prostitution in Beijing, hinting at crackdowns on public displays. The irony? The same Khans who bed boys outlaw street-level hustlers, drawing a line between elite privilege and common vice. Survival for a Yuan-era lover like Chen, a Han Chinese clerk smitten with a Mongol officer, means keeping it secret. Public kisses could mean exile or a noose. Women under the Yuan face tighter chains. Mongol polygamy sidelines, Chinese concubines pushing some into same-sex solace. A rare tale from Fujian speaks of two women, sworn sisters, running a tea shop together, their love a quiet rebellion against husbands who treat them like furniture. But survival's grim. Disease, famine, and Mongol taxes crush the poor, and lesbian bonds, while poetic, don't pay the bills. The pains in their invisibility. No grand chronicles for them, just whispers in marketplaces, their stories lost when bandits burn their village. Absurdly, the Yuan's multicultural mashup, Persian poets, Tibetan monks, creates space for diversity, yet Chinese women's desires stay locked in the inner quarters. The Ming Dynasty, 1368 to 1644 CE, brings Han Chinese rule back with a vengeance. Emperor Hongwu, a peasant-turned-warlord, is all about restoring Confucian order, marriage, heirs, no funny business. Yet same-sex love thrives in the shadows. The Ming's prosperity fuels a pleasure economy. Nanjing's tea houses and Suzhou's gardens buzz with southern custom affairs. Literati like Tang Yin paint male lovers in dreamy landscapes, while novels like Jin Ping Mei slip in homoerotic subplots. The absurdity? The state bans immoral books, but can't stop the elite from living them. Emperor Wanli, 1572 to 1620, reportedly had male favorites, gifting them silk and titles while his wives churned out heirs. Survival for these favorites, like young Li, a court musician, means balancing imperial affection with court intrigue. Jealous consorts could poison your wine if you're too charming. Women's same-sex bonds shine brighter in the Ming, thanks to a booming economy and urban anonymity. In Hangzhou, sworn sisters form guilds, weaving silk or running stalls, their relationships a shield against patriarchal pressures. But the pain's raw. A 1604 case records 2 women executed for unnatural acts after their families betray them, fearing clan shame. The irony? Ming law punishes lesbianism harsher than male homosexuality. Men's flings are frivolous, women's are defiant. Survival means secrecy. One wrong whisper, and you're in a magistrate's dungeon. The Ming's late years see moral panics. Censors burn homoerotic books, and officials raid lewd tea houses. Yet the elite keep indulging, their survival cushioned by wealth. Comment challenge. If you were a Ming lover, would you risk a tea house tryst or keep it hidden? Share below. I'm curious. The Qing dynasty, 1644 to 1912 CE, storms in, Manchu rulers tightening the screws. Emperor Kangxi, 1661 to 1722, bans male prostitution in 1670, signaling a shift. Same-sex love still common, but now it's a political liability. Beijing's opera scene becomes a hotspot. Dan actors playing female roles are courted by nobles, their beauty a currency in a cutthroat capital. The passion of the cut sleeve fades from imperial glory to stage whispers, but it's no less intense. Take Zhang, a fictional Dan actor adored by a Qing prince. He's showered with jade, but one misstep, flirting with a rival, lands him in exile, his patron powerless against court gossip. The pain? Love's a trap when power's at stake, survival a game of dodging spies and slander. Women's stories in the Qing are bittersweet. Cantonese, zishu nu, or self-combed women, continue song-era traditions, swearing off marriage to live together, often as lovers. In silk-weaving towns, they form tight-knit communities, but survival's precarious. Families disown them, and economic slumps force some into prostitution. A 1740 record notes a woman, May, executed for seducing her sworn sister, her crime less about love than defying family honor. Absurdly, Qing law targets women's defiance more than men's dalliances, reflecting a patriarchy terrified of female agency. The pains and the punishment. May's sister survives, but in shame, her love a secret she buries with her loom. By the late Qing, Western influence creeps in, with missionaries preaching against sodomy. The irony? Chinese tolerance, once fluid, stiffens under foreign gaze, yet elite men still collect flower boys in Shanghai's pleasure districts. Survival means adapting. Same-sex lovers mask their bonds as friendships, while the women's desires retreat deeper into private quarters. The Taiping Rebellion, 1850 to 1864, adds chaos, with Christian-inspired rebels decrying all vice, but their own ranks hint at same-sex bonds amid battlefield brotherhood. Painful paradox, a revolution for purity crushing the very fluidity it mimics. As we head to Part 3, the Qing's decline sets the stage for modern clashes, Western morality, imperial collapse, and lovers caught in the crossfire. The absurdity? A culture that wrote odes to same-sex love now bows to new taboos. The pain? Lovers like Wei, Mei, or Zhang, erased or punished for daring to feel. Comment time. What's the most heartbreaking story? Executed lovers or disowned scribes? Drop it below and keep this saga alive. Stay tuned for Part 3, where revolution and reform shake China's heart. Until then, ponder surviving as a Qing lover and keep those comments coming. Welcome back to the tangled, silk-strewn saga of same-sex relationships in ancient China, where love between men was poetic canon, and women's desires were whispers in the shadows, all played out under the watchful eyes of emperors and Confucian killjoys. We left off in the Qing dynasty, with Dan actors stealing hearts in Beijing's opera houses and self-combed women defying marriage in Guangdong, only to face exile or execution for daring to love. This is Part 3 of our sardonic, pain-soaked dive into a history where the absurdity of forbidden passion meets the brutal struggle to survive in a world that romanticizes your love but punishes your existence. Drop a comment with the most heartbreaking tale from Parts 1 or 2, Wei's disownment or May's execution. And let's plunge deeper into this bittersweet historical fever dream. It's the late Qing dynasty, 1644 to 1912 CE, and China's a powder keg of decline, Western powers carve up the coast, emperors cling to crumbling thrones, and same-sex love, once a courtly art, is increasingly a liability. The Manchu rulers, obsessed with control, tighten the screws on immoral behavior. Emperor Qianlong, 1735 to 1796, ramps up bans on male prostitution, targeting Beijing's opera scene where Dan actors, men playing female roles, are basically rock stars, their beauty luring nobles and merchants alike. Picture Liang, a fictional Dan actor whose falsetto and painted face captivate a scholar official. Their romance blooms in secret tea-house booths, but Qianlong's 1740 edict against lewd entertainers forces Liang to flee to Nanjing when a rival snitches. The irony? The same elite who pen odes to Dan beauty fund the purges that crush them. Survival for Liang means trading jade earrings for a new identity, his love story ending in a dusty inn, far from the stage. The pain's sharper for women. In Guangdong, Zishu Nu, or self-combed women, continue their defiant sisterhoods, living as couples in silk-weaving communes. But the Qing's economic woes, opium wars, trade imbalances, hit hard. A fictional pair, Shu and Lan, swear a golden orchid oath, vowing eternal love. Their loom shop thrives until a local magistrate, bribed by a spurned suitor, accuses them of disrupting harmony. Lan's arrested, forced into a marriage to save her family's honor. Shu's left alone, her heart as broken as her business. The absurdity? Qing law cares less about their love than their refusal to breed heirs, branding female independence a crime. Survival means swallowing pride or facing exile. Many choose silence, their mirror-rubbing love buried under societal shame. Comment time. What's more absurd? Purging Dan actors while praising their art or punishing women for not marrying. Drop it below and let's vent. Western influence creeps in, with missionaries preaching Victorian morality. By the 1830s, British and American clerics in treaty ports like Shanghai rail against sodomy, clashing with China's fluid traditions. The irony's thick. Qing elites, desperate to modernize, start aping Western taboos, yet Shanghai's pleasure districts buzz with flower boys, young men serving wealthy patrons. A 1860 record notes a merchant, Feng, caught with a flower boy. He's fined, but his socialite friends shrug it off. Survival for Feng means paying the fine and keeping quiet. For the flower boy, it's dodging jail or worse. Some end up in opium dens, their youth sold cheap. The pain? A culture that once celebrated same-sex love now bends under foreign judgment, forcing lovers into darker corners. The Taiping Rebellion, 1850 to 1864, throws a wrench in everything. These Christian-inspired rebels, led by a self-proclaimed Jesus' brother, decry all vice, including homosexuality. Yet, their all-male armies foster intense bonds, sworn brothers sharing tents, their oaths blurring loyalty and desire. The absurdity? A rebellion preaching purity mirrors the very southern customs it condemns. Take Jun, a fictional Taiping soldier, whose bond with his captain transcends comradeship. When their unit's crushed, Jun's captured, branded a deviant by Qing forces, and executed, not for rebellion, but for love. The pains in the betrayal. A revolution promising salvation delivers death to those who dare fill. Survival for Taiping lovers meant hiding passion behind battle cries, a gamble few won. As the Qing limps into the 19th century, the Boxer Rebellion, 1899 to 1901, adds chaos. Anti-foreign zealots target missionaries, but their puritanical streak hits same-sex communities too. In Shandong, a golden orchid group is raided, accused of immoral rites. The women scatter, some fleeing to Hong Kong, where British rule offers a sliver of freedom, but not much. The irony? Boxers fight Western influence while adopting their moral rigidity, crushing China's own fluid traditions. Survival for these women means exile or erasure, their love stories burned with their homes. Meanwhile, Beijing's opera houses still hum with Dan actors, but the vibe's shifted. Patrons are discreet, and actors like Wei, a fictional star, keep lovers in hidden apartments, dodging spies and censors. Comment challenge. If you were a Qing lover, would you flee to Hong Kong or hide in Beijing's shadows? Share below. I'm dying to know. The early 20th century brings the Qing's collapse in 1912, birthing the Republic of China. Warlords and intellectuals vie for power, and same-sex love gets a modern twist. Shanghai becomes a cosmopolitan hub, its jazz clubs and theaters a haven for fluid desires. The New Culture movement, 1910s to 1920s, pushes for individual freedom, with writers like Yu Dafu penning homoerotic stories that shock conservatives. But the pain persists. A 1915 case in Guangzhou sees two men, scholars, arrested for public indecency after a kiss in a park. They're flogged, their careers ruined, a stark reminder that modernity doesn't equal acceptance. Survival means navigating a fractured society. Republican ideals clash with Confucian ghosts, and lovers like Chen, a fictional student, hide their diaries to avoid disgrace. Women find new spaces in the Republic. Shanghai's cabarets see sisters dancing together, their bonds veiled as friendship. A fictional singer, May, falls for her dance partner, but their manager threatens to expose them unless they marry clients for profit. The absurdity? A city embracing jazz and women's rights still demands conformity, forcing May to choose between love and survival. She picks love, fleeing to a rural hideout, but poverty stalks them. Her partner falls ill, and without funds, she dies. The pains in the loss, freedom's a mirage when society's gaze burns. Lesbian bonds, though more visible, remain dangerous. Their stone mill euphemisms no shield against betrayal. The warlord era, 1916 to 1928, is a free-for-all, with regional bosses setting their own rules. In Sichuan, a warlord's court mimics Han Dynasty flair. Male favorites gain power, but at a cost. A fictional aide, Liang, rises as his lord's lover, only to be betrayed when a rival faction accuses him of treason. Executed, his stories hushed, a footnote in a chaotic age. The irony? Warlords flout tradition, but punish deviants to appease allies. Survival means being indispensable. Liang's charm wasn't enough when politics shifted. For women, warlord harems breed same-sex solace, but concubines face violence or abandonment when patrons fall. Their pains in the silence, no poems for their grinding tofu love, just survival in gilded cages. As the nationalists under Chiang Kai-shek unified China, 1928 to 1937, Western-style laws creep in. A 1930s Shanghai ordinance bans unnatural acts, aping British codes, yet the city's nightlife thrives. Gay tea houses flourish, disguised as literary salons. A fictional poet, Zhao, hosts such salons, his lover a painter whose works hint at their bond, but a police raid in 1935 scatters their circle. Zhao's jailed, his lover flees to Hong Kong. The absurdity? Nationalists push modernization but import Victorian repression, crushing the fluidity of old China. Survival means exile or masks. Zhao's released but lives as a recluse, his poetry burned. Women's bonds fare no better. A 1932 case sees a Nanjing schoolteacher dismissed for corrupting a female student, her life ruined by gossip. The Japanese invasion, 1937 to 1945, upends everything. War tears communities apart, but same-sex bonds persist in the chaos. In occupied Shanghai, a fictional couple, Hui and Min, hide as siblings to escape conscription and raids. Their love survives in whispered nights, but starvation claims Min, leaving Hui to mourn alone. The pains in the loss, war doesn't discriminate, but society's stigma buries their story. The irony? Japanese occupiers, with their own samurai traditions of male love, ignore local vice. Yet Chinese collaborators enforce puritanical laws to curry favor. Survival means blending in, a heart-wrenching act for lovers parted by bombs or betrayal. As we head to Part 4, the communist era looms, promising equality but delivering new chains. The absurdity? A culture that once sang of cut sleeves now faces red purges. The pain? Lovers like Liang, Mei, or Hui erased by war, law, or shame. Comment time. What's the most tragic twist? War's toll or society's betrayal? Drop it below and keep this fire burning. Stay tuned for the finale, where Mao's revolution rewrites love's rules. Until then, ponder surviving as a wartime lover and keep those comments coming. Welcome back to the final act of our silk-wrapped, heartbreak-heavy journey through the untold history of same-sex relationships in ancient China, where love was a poem whispered in secret and a sword dangling overhead. We left off in the turbulent early 20th century, with warlords, Japanese invaders, and a society caught between old fluidity and new repressions, where lovers like Hui and Min clung to each other amid war's chaos, only to be torn apart by starvation and stigma. This is part 4 of our sarcastic, pain-drenched saga, where the absurdity of forbidden desire slams into the brutal survival game of a China remade by revolution, war, and ideology. Expect communist purges, underground passions, and a culture wrestling with its past while hiding its heart. Drop a comment with the most gut-wrenching story from the last 3 parts, Liang's exile, Mei's loss, or Hui's mourning. And let's dive into the finale of this historical nightmare. It's 1949, and Mao Zedong's communist victory reshapes China, promising equality but delivering a new kind of cage. The People's Republic of China, PRC, is born, and with it comes a crusade against decadence. Same-sex love, once celebrated in Han poetry and Qing operas, is branded a bourgeois vice, a relic of feudal filth. The irony? Mao's revolution, built on smashing tradition, adopts the West's puritanical playbook, Victorian morality via Soviet comrades. Homosexuality is not explicitly illegal, but hooliganism laws from the 1950s sweep up anyone caught in a same-sex act. Picture Wei, a fictional Shanghai teacher whose quiet romance with a factory worker ends in a midnight raid. He's dragged to a labor camp, sentenced to re-education through backbreaking work in Heilongjiang's frozen fields. The pain? Wei's lover, denounced by neighbors, hangs himself to avoid arrest. Survival means denying your heart, trading love for silence in a state that sees it as betrayal. Women face an even bleaker fate. The communist push for gender equality sounds nice. Women join factories, communes, but same-sex bonds are taboo. In Guangzhou, a fictional seamstress, Li forms a secret sisterhood with a co-worker, their golden orchid vows echoing Qing traditions. They're caught kissing in a dorm, reported by a jealous comrade. Li's sent to a rural re-education camp, her partner forced into a marriage to cure her. The absurdity? Mao's regime preaches liberation while chaining women to heteronormative roles, their mirror-rubbing love branded a threat to socialist harmony. The pains in the erasure. Li returns broken, her story buried in party files, her lover lost to a husband's fists. Survival means invisibility. Lesbian bonds, once semi-tolerated in silk communes, vanish into whispered rumors. Comment time. What's more absurd? Mao's equality crushing love or neighbors snitching for socialist points? Drop it below and let's rage together. The 1950s and 60s are grim. The Great Leap Forward, 1958 to 1962, starves millions, and same-sex lovers face added peril. In a Henan commune, a fictional couple, Chen and Bao, share stolen moments in a granary, their bond a flicker of warmth amid famine. When caught, they're paraded as degenerates, forced to confess before jeering crowds. Chen's exiled to a desert outpost. Bao, weaker, dies of malnutrition. The irony? The state demands collective sacrifice but punishes private love, equating passion with counter-revolution. Survival means blending into the gray uniformity of Mao's China. Blue jackets, red flags, no room for cut-sleeve romance. Women's stories are nearly erased. A rare 1960 report hints at a Beijing nurse disciplined for unnatural affection, with a patient, her fate unrecorded but likely brutal. The Cultural Revolution, 1966 to 1976, turns the screws tighter. Red Guards, Mao's teenage enforcers, hunt class enemies, and same-sex love becomes a convenient sin to pin on intellectuals or a bourgeois artist. In Beijing, a fictional poet, Zhang, whose homoerotic verses echo Tang Dynasty flair, is denounced as a rightist. His lover, a librarian, burns their letters to save himself, but both end up in a Shaanxi labor camp, breaking rocks under Red Guard. Whips. The pain? Zhang's poetry, once a spark of defiance, is ash. His lover's betrayal cuts deeper than the cold. The absurdity? A revolution claiming to free the masses shackles desire, turning bitten peach tales into capitalist crimes. For women, the era's chaos buries their stories deeper. Lesbian bonds, like those of sworn sisters, are crushed under accusations of feudal remnants. Their survival a silent act of endurance. Comment challenge: if you were in Mao's China, would you hide your love or risk the camps? Share below. I'm curious. The 1970s see a slight thaw as Mao's death in 1976 ends the Cultural Revolution. Deng Xiaoping's reforms open China to the world, but same-sex love remains underground. In Shanghai's back alley tea houses, a new generation of comrades, the modern term for gay men, meet in secret. A fictional artist, Lin, hosts coded parties, his paintings hinting at male lovers in Tang-style robes. But a 1983 anti-spiritual pollution campaign sweeps through, and Lin's arrested for hooliganism after a neighbor snitches. Released after a year, he's a shadow, his art confiscated. The irony? Deng's China embraces capitalism but clings to socialist morality, aping Western homophobia while selling sneakers. Survival means masks. Lin passes as a bachelor, his lover fleeing to Hong Kong's freer shores. Women's bonds flicker in urban cracks. In the 1980s in Guangzhou, a fictional factory worker, Mei, falls for a co-worker, their stone mill intimacy hidden in shared dorms. When a supervisor catches them, Mei's fired, branded a deviant in her work unit's records. She scrapes by selling street food, her lover married off to save face. The pains and the loss, Mei's dreams of a shared life dissolve into poverty, her story one of thousands erased. The absurdity? China's opening to the West brings gay bars to Hong Kong, but the mainland lags its liberation, a mirage for same-sex lovers. Lesbian communities, small but defiant, form in Beijing's universities, but exposure means expulsion, or worse. Survival hinges on secrecy. The 1990s bring glimmers of change. In 1997, hooliganism laws are repealed, decriminalizing same-sex acts, though no legal protections follow. Shanghai's gay scene creeps above ground. Bars like Eddie's open, disguised as cultural venues. A fictional dancer, Jun, finds love in these neon-lit havens, but police raids keep him on edge. His partner, a teacher, is outed and fired, forcing them to part. The irony? China embraces global trade but shuns global rights, leaving Jun to dodge plainclothes cops while chasing love. Women's spaces emerge too. Beijing's first lesbian bar opens in 1998, but it's shuttered by 2000, its patrons harassed. A fictional student, Hui, organizes underground sister meetups, but a 1999 crackdown scatters them, Hui's girlfriend vanishing into an arranged marriage. Survival means fleeting moments. Hui's love lives in stolen letters, burned to avoid detection. The 2000s see China's economy soar, but same-sex love lags. The internet sparks connection. Chat rooms like Faizan let comrades find each other, but censorship looms. In 2001, a fictional blogger, Shen, posts about his boyfriend, only to be detained for spreading obscenity. Released, he goes silent, his blog erased. The pain? Technology promises freedom, but the state's Great Firewall traps it. The absurdity? China hosts the 2008 Olympics, preaching harmony, while gay bars face raids. Lesbian couples like fictional Wei and Lan navigate Beijing's underground, their golden orchid vows whispered in karaoke rooms. But exposure risks jobs, family, everything. Wei's outed by a cousin, her life upended, Lan disappearing into the city's sprawl. Comment break. What's more heartbreaking? Shen's silence blog or Wei's broken bond? Drop it below and keep this fire alive. The 2010s bring cautious progress. In 2013, a Shanghai Pride event draws hundreds, but police monitor closely. Same-sex marriage remains a dream. China's 2019 civil code ignores it. A fictional couple, Chen and Bao, fight for visibility, hosting film screenings, but their venues shut down, labeled subversive. The irony? China's global power grows, yet its lovers hide. Women's communities grow online. WeChat groups for sisters, but censors delete them. A 2020 case sees a lesbian couple, Li and Mei, sued by their families for refusing marriage. They lose, one fleeing to Canada. The pains in the exile. Love survives, but at the cost of home. Today, in 2025, China's a paradox. Urban gay bars thrive, but rural lovers face stigma. A fictional poet, Zhang, pens same-sex verses online, echoing Tang odes but risks bans. Lesbian sworn sisters in Guangzhou hold secret weddings, but families disown them. The absurdity? A nation racing to the future clings to old shames. The pain? Lives like Wei's, May's, or Zhang's, caught in a cycle of hope and erasure. Survival means defiance, posting, loving, existing despite the odds. From Han's cut sleeves to modern pride, China's same-sex history is a tapestry of beauty and betrayal, its lovers enduring through poetry and pain. Comment time. What's the most inspiring act? Defiant bloggers or secret weddings? Drop it below and let's celebrate resilience. This saga's done, but its echoes linger. China's same-sex love, once sung in palaces, now fights for breath in a world of censors and dreams. Thanks for diving into this bittersweet nightmare with me. Keep those comments coming. Tell me how you'd survive as a modern comrade. Until next time, stay curious and keep cutting sleeves. Ever feel like history's been giving you the old side-eye, whispering secrets it doesn't want you to hear? Like there's a whole, vibrant, incredibly messy truth hiding just beneath the surface of those dusty textbooks? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because today we're tearing down the velvet ropes and crashing the most exclusive, least talked about party in art history, the Renaissance and its surprisingly, outrageously, undeniably bisexual heart. Get ready for an ironic journey through paint, marble, and a whole lot of unspoken longing. And hey, before we even dive in, hit that like button and tell me in the comments, what's one historical truth you've always suspected was actually a magnificent lie? Alright, let's set the scene. Florence, 15th century. Imagine it. Not just a cradle of artistic genius, but also a hotbed of intrigue, ambition, and a level of sexual fluidity that would make your average TikTok influencer blush. We're talking about a time when the lines were, shall we say, a little more smudged than your high school art teacher ever let on. Forget your chaste Madonnas and stoic saints for a moment. We're delving into a world where angels weren't always angelic, and patrons weren't always just commissioning a pretty fresco. Sometimes they were commissioning a pretty someone. Now, the official narrative, the one spoon-fed to us with our morning cereal, is that the Renaissance was all about humanism, classical revival, and a healthy dose of heterosexual love, sanctioned by the church, naturally. And sure, that was a narrative, but it was often a carefully curated, meticulously painted over narrative, especially when it came to anything that deviated from the increasingly rigid societal norms. The truth, as it often is, was far more interesting, more dangerous, and infinitely more human. Let's talk about the survival aspect for a moment. Being openly, explicitly anything other than strictly heterosexual in Renaissance Europe was, to put it mildly, not a career-enhancing move. It could get you excommunicated, exiled, or, in the delightful fashion of the era, set ablaze for public edification. So, artists, being the clever, resourceful, and often desperately horny individuals they were, developed a language of subtlety, a secret code, if you will, embedded in their masterpieces. They weren't just painting pictures, they were painting puzzles, daring you to look closer, to read between the brushstrokes. Consider the male nude. Ah, the male nude. The glorious, muscular, often impossibly youthful male nude that dominates so much of Renaissance art. Now, we're told this was all about anatomical study, a return to classical ideals, the celebration of the human form. And yes, absolutely. But also sometimes it was a little bit more, a lot more. When Michelangelo carved his David, was he only thinking about the perfect musculature of a biblical hero? Or was there a deeper, more personal resonance with the idealized male form, a resonance that echoed the desires he, and many of his contemporaries, felt but dared not speak? The pain of this unspoken desire, this forced concealment, is palpable when you look at certain works with a knowing eye. Imagine pouring your heart, your soul, your forbidden longings into a piece of art, knowing that only a select few would ever truly understand the full depth of its meaning. It's a form of artistic martyrdom, a quiet rebellion against a world that demanded conformity. And yet, this very constraint often led to an incredible richness, a multi-layered complexity that makes these works so endlessly fascinating. Take, for instance, the intense, almost spiritual friendships depicted between men in countless paintings and sculptures. The lingering gazes, the tender touches, the unspoken intimacy. While often framed as purely platonic, a celebration of brotherly love or intellectual companionship, a modern eye can't help but notice the profound emotional and, dare we say, erotic charge emanating from some of these depictions. Was it always innocent? In a society where same-sex acts were punishable by death, but intense male bonding was often encouraged for social cohesion and military prowess, how did these artists navigate the treacherous waters of desire and decorum? They did it with artistry, with ambiguity, and with a healthy dose of plausible deniability. This wasn't just a fleeting trend among a few eccentric artists. This was part of the fabric of the Renaissance, woven into the tapestries of power, patronage, and artistic creation. Popes had male lovers, cardinals had female mistresses and male companions, and artists were often at the very heart of these complex, often scandalous networks. It was a world where hypocrisy wasn't a bug, but a feature. Survival depended on your ability to play the game, to outwardly adhere to the strictures while privately indulging your true nature. So, as we begin this journey, remember, we're not just looking at paintings and sculptures. We're looking at diaries written in pigment, love letters carved in stone, and desperate pleas for understanding whispered through the ages. We're peeling back the layers of varnish, literal and metaphorical, to reveal a history that's been deliberately obscured, edited, and often outright erased. It's a history of beauty, brilliance, and the sheer, exhausting absurdity of trying to live authentically in a world that denies your very existence. And it's a history that begs to be seen, to be acknowledged, and to be understood. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll dive even deeper into specific artists and their incredibly audacious, often heartbreaking hidden messages. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want more of this delicious historical mischief. And seriously, what's your favorite piece of Renaissance art that now makes you go, I wonder? Let me know below. Welcome back to the Renaissance's secret boudoir. If you're just joining us, you missed the grand unveiling of how history's been pulling a fast one on us, scrubbing out all the juicy queer bits from the official narrative. In part 1, we dipped our toes into the murky, wonderfully ambiguous waters of 15th century Florence and the subtle language artists used to express desires that could literally get them burned at the stake. Now, grab your preferred beverage, something strong perhaps, because we're about to name names and look at some truly audacious artistry. Let's talk about Leonardo da Vinci. Ah, Leo, the ultimate Renaissance man, inventor, scientist, painter, philosopher, and apparently a master of subtle by-erasure in historical accounts. Now, conventional history often paints him as a solitary genius, perhaps asexual, too consumed by his inventions to bother with mere human affections. Please, this is the man who drew detailed anatomical studies, not just of skeletons and muscles, but also of, other things. And let's not forget his actual life. Leonardo was, shall we say, a magnet for handsome young apprentices. His studio was practically a magnet for attractive young men, many of whom became more than just students. Consider Salai, for example, Leonardo's longtime apprentice, model, and companion. Salai, whose name literally translates to Little Devil, was with Leonardo for over 30 years. He was described as beautiful, charming, and a bit of a rascal, known for stealing and general mischief. But Leonardo clearly adored him, even creating a playful, semi-erotic drawing of Salai as a Bacchus figure, complete with suggestive grapes and an undeniable sensuality. Were they just master and apprentice? Or was there a deeper, more intimate bond, one that transcended the simple boundaries of professional relationship, especially given the social climate that discouraged open same-sex relationships? The truth, as painted in the affectionate glances and the sheer longevity of their bond, seems to lean heavily towards the latter. The pain of having to hide such a significant relationship, to couch it in the acceptable language of mentorship, must have been immense. It's the ultimate historical gaslighting, being told that what you see isn't what you see. And then there's Michelangelo. Oh, Mikey, the titan of the Renaissance, whose personal life was as tumultuous and dramatic as his art. History loves to focus on his unrequited, or supposedly unrequited love for Vittoria Colonna, a noble woman and poet. And sure, that was a significant relationship in his later life. But what about the passionate sonnets he wrote to Tommaso dei Cavalieri, a young nobleman? These weren't just polite artistic tributes. These were searing, soul-bearing declarations of love. using language typically reserved for a male lover of a female beloved, but with a gender unambiguously masculine. "I swear to return your love," he wrote, "as I have sworn to render your name immortal with my art." This wasn't just admiration, this was devotion. Imagine the agony of an artist like Michelangelo, driven by such profound passions, yet living in an era where expressing those passions openly could lead to utter ruin. Every line of a sonnet, every chiseled muscle in a sculpture, becomes a coded message, a desperate plea for understanding from those few who might get it. His famous David, a celebration of male beauty and strength, can also be seen as an idealized representation of the very form he found so captivating. The Renaissance, in its grand irony, simultaneously celebrated the male form in art while condemning same-sex desire in life. It's a historical paradox that screams for analysis, but it wasn't just men. The Renaissance, in its own twisted way, also had spaces for women to express themselves, albeit with even greater difficulty and discretion. Nuns, for example. While confined to convents, these institutions sometimes became havens where women formed intensely close bonds, which in some documented cases transcended mere spiritual sisterhood. Think of the exquisite illuminated manuscripts created by nuns, often depicting female saints in tender embraces or allegories of divine love that could be read on a more earthly, intimate level. These were often the only places where female artists could hone their craft and express their inner lives, and sometimes those inner lives were far more colorful than the church would have preferred. The pain of survival for these women was not just societal condemnation, but the very real threat of eternal damnation in the eyes of their faith. Let's not forget the patrons. It wasn't just the artists who had a penchant for unconventional desires. The powerful Medici family, for instance, patrons to many of the greats, had their own share of complex personal lives. Lorenzo the Magnificent, while married with many children, was also known for his appreciation of male beauty and for fostering an environment where artistic and intellectual pursuits often overlapped with more personal relationships, blurring the lines in a deliciously scandalous way. These were the power players, the people who could offer some degree of protection, or at least a blind eye, to the artists they favored. It's a cynical dance of power and passion, where influence could sometimes buy you a little leeway from the stricter moral codes. The sheer absurdity of it all, when you really consider it, is breathtaking. A society that produced some of the most beautiful and enduring art in human history, often driven by intense, passionate, and sometimes forbidden desires, yet simultaneously pretended those desires didn't exist. It's like watching a tightrope walker perform an impossible feat, all while loudly proclaiming they're just walking on solid ground. The brilliance is undeniable, but so is the profound disconnect between public facade and private reality. So, when you look at these masterpieces now, I want you to look beyond the surface. Ask yourself, what's the real story being told here? What whispers are hiding in the shadows of the frescoes, the curves of the statues, the lines of the sonnets? Because once you start looking, you realize that the Renaissance wasn't just a rebirth of classical ideals. It was a rebirth of human desire in all its messy, magnificent, and often unacknowledged forms. Don't go anywhere. In part 3, we're going to explore some more subtle clues, decode allegories, and uncover how political cartoons and satirical writings of the era might have inadvertently given us even more glimpses into the era's fluid sexual landscape. And hey, if you're enjoying this ride through history's hidden corners, smash that like button and tell me in the comments, which Renaissance artist's secret life are you most curious about? Let's keep this conversation going. Alright, history sleuths, welcome back to our scandalous stroll through the Renaissance, where the paint was wet, the marble was chiseled, and everyone was probably having a lot more fun than your history teacher let on. In parts 1 and 2, we exposed the grand conspiracy of historical erasure and peeked behind the curtain at the likes of Leonardo and Michelangelo, whose art and lives practically scream "bye" from the rooftops. Now, for part 3, let's dive even deeper into the glorious absurdity of it all, exploring how allegories, satirical jabs, and even political cartoons unwittingly spill the beans on the era's gloriously messy sexual landscape. The Renaissance was a master of metaphor. Everything, from a flower to a mythological beast, could carry layers of hidden meaning. This wasn't just artistic flourish, it was often a survival mechanism. When you couldn't directly depict or discuss certain aspects of human experience, you coded them. and nowhere is this more evident than in the depiction of love, desire, and the human form. Take the abundance of mythological scenes. Ganymede being abducted by Jupiter in eagle form was a popular one. Now, on the surface, it's a classical tale, but for those in the know, it was a thinly veiled, entirely acceptable way to depict male-male desire. Zeus, the king of the gods, so smitten with a beautiful mortal youth that he whisks him away to be his cupbearer, and, more. The sheer audacity of presenting such stories, often in prominent public spaces, while simultaneously condemning similar earthly acts, is peak Renaissance irony. Imagine being an artist paid to paint a scene like this, knowing full well that you and a significant portion of your audience understand the subtext to be the actual text. It's a wink and a nod that spans centuries, a secret handshake across time. The pain of having to constantly disguise one's truth, to communicate through a veil of classical mythology or religious allegory, must have been a crushing burden. Yet, it also fueled an incredible creative ingenuity, forcing artists to imbue their work with a profound depth that resonates even today. These weren't just pretty pictures, they were sophisticated, multi-layered commentaries on human nature. But what about the truly unspoken? The things too scandalous even for mythological allegory. This is where we turn to the delightful world of Renaissance satire and political cartoons. Yes, they existed. Often crude, sometimes vicious, these works provide an unfiltered glimpse into the popular consciousness, including anxieties and obsessions around sexuality. While many of these caricatures were designed to shame or mock, they inadvertently confirm the prevalence of the very behaviors they sought to condemn. When you see a satirical drawing depicting, say, a cleric in a compromising position with both a woman and a young man, it's not just a baseless accusation. It's often an exaggeration of a perceived or actual truth, reflecting a societal awareness, however uncomfortable, of a broader spectrum of sexual practices. These satirical pieces, often ephemeral and distributed as woodcuts or pamphlets, were the memes of their day. They operated in the vernacular, speaking directly to common fears and fascinations, and the fact that bisexuality, or at least same-sex desire alongside heterosexual relationships, was fodder for such commentary tells us it wasn't some isolated hidden phenomenon. It was there, in the public consciousness, acknowledged even if only to be ridiculed or condemned. The absurdity here is that the very tools used to enforce conformity often ended up providing us with the most candid historical evidence of defiance. Let's not forget the problem of youth and beauty in the workshops. Apprenticeships weren't just about learning to mix pigments. They were often live-in situations, creating intense, intimate environments. The master was responsible for the apprentice's moral and physical well-being. But human nature, being what it is, often found ways to complicate these arrangements. Accusations of sodomy, a catch-all term for various non-procreative sexual acts, often but not exclusively referring to male-male sex, were not uncommon, sometimes used as weapons in professional rivalries or personal vendettas. The mere existence of these accusations, whether true or not, indicates that such relationships were a known, if forbidden, part of the social landscape. Consider the famous case of Benvenuto Cellini, the flamboyant sculptor and goldsmith. His autobiography is a goldmine of Renaissance swagger, violence, and, well, highly complex relationships. Cellini was famously involved with women, had illegitimate children, and also faced accusations of sodomy multiple times. He was clearly a man of voracious appetites, and his life story, recounted with unapologetic bravado, paints a picture of a world where attraction flowed in multiple directions, even if you had to dodge the papal police every now and then. His survival was a testament to his talent, his connections, and his sheer audacious will. The pain of navigating a society that could elevate you for your genius one moment and condemn you for your desires the next must have been a constant low-level hum of anxiety. The church itself, in all its supposed moral rectitude, was a hotbed of this complex reality. While publicly denouncing sodomy with fiery sermons and severe punishments, the actual practice within its ranks was often a different story. Confessional manuals, designed to help priests identify and counsel sinners, are surprisingly detailed in their descriptions of various sexual acts, including those between individuals of the same sex. These documents, while intended to suppress, inadvertently become historical records, showing the widespread awareness and often the actual occurrence of these forbidden acts even among the clergy. It's a magnificent display of institutional hypocrisy, a stark reminder that even the most powerful moral arbiters of the past were not immune to the very human desires they sought to control. So, when we talk about the untold history of bisexuality in Renaissance art, we're not just speculating. We're decoding, cross-referencing, and connecting the dots across different forms of evidence, from the sublime brushstrokes of a master to the crude lines of a satirical cartoon, from passionate sonnets to dry confessional records. It's a testament to the ingenuity of humans to find ways to express their truths, even in the most repressive of times. And it's a testament to the sheer, stubborn persistence of truth itself, bubbling up through centuries of intentional suppression. This historical journey isn't just about identifying who is queer or bi. It's about understanding the complex tapestry of human experience, the resilience of desire, and the artistic brilliance born from both freedom and constraint. It challenges us to look beyond the sanitized versions of history and embrace the messy, vibrant, and sometimes darkly humorous reality of the past. Are you ready for the grand finale? In Part 4, we'll synthesize all these threads, discuss the lasting impact of this hidden history, and challenge you to rethink everything you thought you knew about the Renaissance. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more historical deep dives, and tell me in the comments below, what's the most outrageous historical hypocrisy you've ever learned about? Let's keep the conversation and the revelations flowing.